A service of KIBMradio.com, the Internet's home for an all-old-time radio.
Ladies and gentlemen, this program is for you, not your children. The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, brings you Dragnet.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to homicide detail. A woman and her 2-year-old child disappears suddenly. There's no apparent reason for it. 5 days pass. No trace of them. Your job? Find them. Webster's Dictionary. Definition of the word compare.
Compare. Examine for purpose of discovering resemblance or difference.
Now, let's compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
The resemblance. Fatimas are the same length as other king-size cigarettes, 85 millimeters. Fatima has the same circumference, 1 1/64 inches around.
And Fatima filters the smoke exactly the same long distance as other king-size cigarettes.
The difference. In Fatima, the difference is quality.
You see, Fatima contains the finest domestic and Turkish tobaccos superbly blended to make Fatima extra mild. You get all the advantages of extra length plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
So compare Fatima yourself. Your first puff will tell you...
Ah, that's different.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality. Buy Fatima. Best of all long cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Tuesday, April 20th. It was overcast in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of homicide. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Captain Blaine Steed. My name's Friday. I was on the way back from communications, and it was 1:35 p.m. when I got to room 42. Homicide.
Hi, Joe. What's doing?
Oh, not much, Mac. Where'd Ben go?
Inside, Captain's office. Be right back.
Oh, thank you. Keeping you busy?
Oh, about the same. A little hectic around the house, though.
Well, that's right. Ben mentioned something about that. You're getting ready for a wedding out there, aren't you?
Yeah, my daughter Alice. Sure getting a nice fella.
Well, that's all.
Yeah, ambitious kid. Part-time accountant. Goes to law school at night down Loyola. Real nice fella.
Mm-hmm. When are you getting married?
Week from Saturday. It's going to be a big church thing. Sure glad it doesn't happen often.
Oh, how do you mean?
Big production. Never saw so many bills in my life. New dress for Alice, going away luggage, bridesmaids' dresses, eats, drinks, new carpet for the hall, new curtains in the living room. Wife must think I'm made of this stuff.
Well, you should have had all boys, Mac.
Yeah.
You're giving your daughter away, huh?
Yeah. Well, that reminds me, I got to be sure and send my suit to cleaners, get a good press job on it. Sure is funny.
Huh? What's that?
It seems for years the wife's been afraid we'd never get Alice married off. Now it's finally in the works, the wife's still unhappy.
Oh, well, how's that?
Goes around moping around the house, wiping at her eyes, keeps muttering something about losing her little girl is leaving her. I don't know.
Well, how old's your daughter?
32. Well, I'll be down stats office if anybody wants me.
Right, Mac.
Oh, pardon me, Ben.
Excuse me, I didn't see.
Okay.
Hi, where you been?
Making a couple of phone calls. I think we might have something.
Yeah, what's that?
The Gorman case. Had a call from one of the neighbors while you were gone. Where was that calendar of ours?
Gee, I don't know. Well, here, I got one in my pocket here in my wallet.
Oh, good.
Here you are.
Well, thanks. Well, let's see now. Mrs. Gorman and her little girl Nancy disappeared on the 15th. Is that right?
Yeah, Thursday. Why?
And the husband, Mr. Gorman, filed a missing complaint on Friday morning, right?
Yeah. What are you getting at?
Well, you remember when we talked to Mr. Gorman, he couldn't think of any reason why his wife and his little girl should disappear like they did.
Yeah.
Remember me asking him the question if his wife ran around at all, if she was interested in any other man?
That's right. He told you no, didn't he?
Well, this man who just called in, he lives out in the Gorman neighborhood. He swears up and down that Mrs. Gorman was keeping company with another man.
Well, who is this neighbor, anyway?
Name's John Pearson. He lives about 4 blocks from the Gormans.
Well, we talked to neighbors a lot closer than that to the Gormans. They didn't seem to know anything about it. What else did this guy tell you?
Well, let's see. The man Mrs. Gorman was supposed to be running out with is a Ralph Kane. He lives next door to Mr. Pearson.
Well, how'd this Pearson sound to you?
Pretty typical neighborhood watchdog. But here's the interesting part. Mrs. Gorman and little daughter Nancy disappeared last Thursday. Now, according to Pearson, this Ralph Kane hasn't been seen around since Friday night. He told me on the phone he saw Kane toss a couple of suitcases in his car late Friday night and drive off. Said he hasn't come back yet.
Yeah, it might be something. Well, how much of a romance was Mrs. Gorman supposed to be having with this Ralph Kane?
Well, it's pretty heavy, according to Pearson. Said it's been going on for 6 months anyhow.
And Mr. Gorman didn't know anything about it?
He got me there. If he did, he didn't let us in on it. Wonder if he'd have any reason to cover it up.
Well, it's possible, I guess. Didn't want the scandal. How sure are you that Ralph Kane's really missing? Might be just off on a weekend, huh?
No, I checked the place he worked. He's a printer. Didn't show up for work Monday. Didn't show up today either.
No message, no excuse?
Nothing. I called a friend of Kane's that Pearson knew about. Friend doesn't know where he's gone.
Well, I guess we better get on it. It's the first decent lead in 5 days. Huh?
Yeah. Just thinking, Joe. Neighbors like Pearson. What would we do without him?
5 days before, on a Thursday evening, a Mr. Philip Gorman returned to his home in the Westlake district of Los Angeles to find his wife, Barbara Gorman, and his 2-year-old daughter, Nancy, missing. There wasn't any note, no explanation of any kind. A few clothes were gone. Mr. Gorman filed a missing report, and a broadcast and an APB were gotten out on the mother and daughter. Neighbors, friends, and relatives were checked. No leads. Routine investigation failed to turn up anything. Mr. Gorman could give us no explanation for the disappearance. After 3 days, we got out a radiogram. Still no results. Tuesday, 1:50 p.m., Ben and I got in the car and drove out to see John Pearson, who'd phoned in the information about Mrs. Gorman's supposed boyfriend, Ralph Kane. We found Pearson out on the back porch of his home feeding some milk to a pair of house cats.
I thought everybody knew that, Sergeant. Mrs. Gorman running around with that Ralph Kane. I'm no busybody. I wouldn't have mentioned it all if this hadn't happened.
You say Kane had been seeing Mrs. Gorman for the last 6 months. Is that right, Mr. Pearson?
About 6 months. That's how long I've seen it go on. And James, don't be such a hog. Let Fred have some of the milk, too. Greedy little devils.
Do you know of anybody else in the neighborhood who's been aware of this, Mr. Pearson? I mean, Mrs. Gorman and this Ralph Kane?
Well, I know for sure that Thelma White next door knows about it. She's mentioned it to me. Kane used to park with Mrs. Gorman near that vacant lot by Thelma's house. Those were the nights that Mr. Gorman was working late.
Would you know if Mr. Gorman was aware of this, that his wife was running around with another man?
I'm pretty sure he did, Sergeant. That's the strange part about it.
Well, how do you know, sir?
For George, the man who delivers the groceries, he just happened to mention it to me once. All right, James. Right, it's all gone. Now run off and play. Yes, George, the grocery man, he made a delivery to the Gormans once and heard them rowing about it. George said Mr. Gorman was very mad, talked divorce, all that sort of thing.
Well, how about the Gorman's little girl, Mr. Pearson, little Nancy?
Tragic, Sergeant. Such a sweet little thing. Mrs. Gorman kept her under an iron hand. Imagine, the little girl's only 2 years old. Mrs. Gorman was after her with a stick all the time. She's not much of a mother. Not the way I look at it, anyway.
Well, what's your opinion of all this? Do you think that Ralph Kane has run off with Miss Gorman?
Well, what else can you think? 2 of them carry on for 6 months. Mrs. Gorman disappears Thursday. Mr. Kane leaves Friday night. What else can you think?
This neighbor of yours, Thelma White, does she live in this house over here, over on the right?
Yeah, that's right next door. You go over and talk to her. She's home now. Thelma will tell you the same thing I did.
Oh, that's it. Thank you very much.
Not at all, Sergeant. Just one thing I can't understand about Mrs. Gorman's little girl, little Nancy. Can't quite understand why she's gone. Doesn't seem to fit somehow.
How do you mean?
If you're going to run off with a man, you don't take your family along.
2:15 p.m. We went next door and talked with the neighbor, Thelma White. She told us the same story as Pearson. From the 2 of them, we got the description. DMV furnished us with the license number of Ralph Kane's car. We checked further with Kane's friends, relatives, and his landlady. No one had seen or heard from him since late Friday. We searched the duplex where he lived. No leads. We went back to the office and checked Kane through R&I. He had one arrest for petty theft. We got out a broadcast and an APB on him. Well, that night, Ben and I drove out to see the husband and father of the missing woman and youngster, Philip Gorman. He was employed as a groundskeeper at one of the baseball parks in the city.
Pretty fair turnout tonight, huh?
Yeah. Weather's cleared up a little. Probably helped, huh? Where's the groundskeeper shack? Down at the end there?
Yeah, you can't see it from here. It's just below the end of the bleachers there.
Wow. You come out here very often?
Not as often as I'd like to. It's down this way.
Okay.
Watch your step there, Joe. Is a mud puddle?
Yeah, I see it.
Sorry, you'll have to get back in the stands. You're not allowed down this end.
Hurry, Mr. Gorman. Friday and Romero. You remember that?
Yeah, sure. I didn't recognize you for a minute.
You got a few minutes, Mr. Gorman? We'd like to talk to you if we could.
Well, sure, right now, if you want. You found out something about the wife, little girl?
No, sir, nothing definite. Got a few questions we'd like to ask you.
Well, that's fine with me. I got nothing to do for a couple more innings. What's it all about?
Well, when we talked to you at your house the other day, Gorman, you remember me asking if you could think of any reason why your wife and your little girl should disappear like you did?
Yeah, I remember. There's nothing I can think of, Sergeant.
Do you recall us asking you if your wife might have been interested in some other man, somebody she might go off with?
Yeah, I remember all that. I told you I didn't think that was it.
Now, look, if you know something and you're not telling us because you don't want the scandal, you can forget that, Gorman, because whatever you tell us is in strict confidence, you know.
I don't know what you mean, Sergeant. I told you everything I know.
Well, we'll be honest with you, Gorman. We think you're trying to cover up.
Well, that's not true. I don't have anything to cover up.
We picked up some new information on your wife this afternoon. We hear she was pretty friendly with a man named Ralph Kane. Lives a few blocks from your house. We hear that you knew what was going on. You and your wife, Barbara, had a row. You talked divorce. How about it?
Well, let's go inside the shack here, huh? Get away from some of this noise.
Fine, sure.
I hope you don't mind it in here. It's a little dirty. I keep all the maintenance stuff in here.
That's all right, Gorman. Now, how about Ralph Kane?
Yeah. I knew about it. It's like you said, all the scandal. I just didn't want it to get out.
Well, look, if you're going to hold out on us, it's not going to help much to find your wife and little girl.
Yeah, I know, Sergeant. I just didn't want people to find out what a bum I married. You know what some neighbors are like.
Mm-hmm.
I can't understand how it happened. I met the wife when I was in the Army.
I see.
I brought her back out here. Everything was fine. After the baby was born, she started to change. Nothing satisfied her. She began to run around. Nothing but a bum, but I guess I found out too late.
Well, now, this Ralph Kane, what do you know about him?
Well, he's a single guy. Works at a print shop downtown. Pretty good-looking guy. He's got money to spend. That's all Barbara cares about.
Well, what's your idea about it?
Huh?
You think Kane and your wife have gone off together?
Well, to tell you the truth, I'm not sure. Maybe they did. I've been trying to check around them all. We're not getting very far. There's only one thing I'm really worried about. That's my little girl, Nancy. I don't care what my wife does or how far she goes. I just want my little girl back, that's all.
Have you any idea at all where your wife might have gone?
No, none at all. She didn't know California too well. She's only been out here a year.
Mm-hmm. You don't know any of Kane's friends, his hangouts, or places you think he might go?
No. Well, I never even met the guy, Sonia. I'm going to, though. I know what he looks like. I'll meet him.
Well, there's just one more thing, Gorman. If your wife was set on running off with another man, why did she take your little girl with her? She wasn't too devoted to the baby, I understand.
Yeah, that's right. That's what's got me worried. The only thing I can figure out is the wife hated me more than I thought. She knew that I thought Nancy was about the greatest thing alive. I guess rather than let me have her, she took Nancy along with her.
Well, is it possible she might drop the baby off with some friend or relative and tell them to keep her?
Well, I've checked on that already, Sergeant. You got the names of all the people we know. I'm sure they'd get in touch with me if they had Nancy.
Well, we'll double-check them anyhow.
All right.
Well, if there's anything else comes up, you let us know right away, huh?
All right, Sergeant. It's just the baby, that's all, Nancy. As far as I'm concerned, my wife never lived. It's kind of hard to take, anyway.
Yes, it is.
Think you got the finest setup in the world. Nice home, job, baby, good furniture, everything you need.
Yeah.
Everything but a wife.
The search for the missing wife and the 2-year-old daughter went on. The broadcasts and teletypes on Mrs. Gorman and Ralph Kane failed to net us a thing. A week passed. There were no leads. Another week went by. Nothing. The half-dozen replies we'd gotten on our teletype went nowhere. They were blind leads. Wednesday, May 5th. We got a call from the manager of an auto court in the south end of the city. He told us that a man, a woman, and a little girl, answering the description of the missing trio, had stopped at his place the night before. Along with Jack McCready from Homicide, Ben and I drove out and interviewed the man. We showed him pictures of Kane, Mrs. Gorman, and 2-year-old Nancy. He identified all three. He could give us no idea where they'd gone. We checked through the cottage where they stayed.
No, nothing. Just about as clean as you can get.
Well, something here.
What's that?
Look here. Kid's picture book. Let's see. Yeah, take a look right here.
This book belongs to Nancy Gorman. Well, we know they were here. That's about it.
Hey, Ben? Joe?
Yeah, Mac. Where are you?
Out in the back. Come here.
All right.
What have you got?
Come here, have a look.
Where'd you find that?
Poking around this trash barrel here. Looks like part of a little girl's dress, huh?
Yeah, there's not much there. Did you find the rest of it?
Well, that's all there is, just that little collar.
Take a look here, Ben. The stains right here, over here, too.
Yeah. What do you think?
Mac, blood stains?
I'd say so.
We drove back to the office to the crime lab and had Lee Jones run the stains on the dress. He ran a benzodine test and then a biological precipitant. The stains were made by human blood. Well, it still didn't put us any closer to the missing child or her mother. The search went on. We redoubled our efforts. No luck. Another 10 days passed. We had a few more responses to our all-points bulletin, but none of them panned out. On May 16th, we got 2 more leads to check out. They went nowhere. We got back to the office a little after 6 p.m.
Better call Mr. Gorman after we check in, huh? Keep him off of our backs.
Yeah, I hate to keep telling him the same thing. No word.
Yeah.
How about it? You call Gorman tonight, huh?
All right. Matt, what's doing?
Got something for you. Sheriff's substation called, East L.A.
Now, what about?
The Gorman case, they found him.
Where?
Another auto court right there in East L.A. Ralph Kane and Mrs. Gorman, they got them both under surveillance.
How about the little girl, Nancy?
Well, that's a hitch.
Huh?
No sign of her.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic cases from official files. Now, let's look at our Fatima files.
Listed under H. Hardwick. Cedric Hardwick, distinguished actor. He says,
I find Fatima a very pleasing cigarette. It has a distinctly better flavor.
K. Kelly. Nancy Kelly, star of the Broadway hit Season in the Sun. She says,
Between scenes and after the show, I like to relax in my dressing room and light up a Fatima. They have a really different flavor. And what's important to me, they're extra mild.
listed under L. Lovett. Vice Admiral Leland P. Lovett, United States Navy, retired. He says,
I smoked Fatimas when I was a midshipman. I still do, because they have a better flavor and aroma. Fatima is easily the best of all long cigarettes.
friends, our files show Fatima sales are going up. Up every day.
The reason for Fatima's ever-increasing popularity can be summed up in 2 words. Fatima quality.
Yes, Fatima gives you all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
So if you smoke a king-size cigarette, compare Fatima.
You'll find they now cost the same, but your first puff will tell you.
Ah, that's different.
Because in Fatima, the difference is quality. Buy Fatima. Best of all long cigarettes.
Saturday, May 16th, 9 p.m. Along with Levinson and McCready from Homicide, Ben and I drove out to the sheriff's substation in the east end of the city. One of the deputy sheriffs directed us to the motor court where Mrs. Barbara Gorman and Ralph Kane were under surveillance. We found the 2 of them in one of the rear cottages. There was no trace of 2-year-old Nancy Gorman. Levinson and McCready took Ralph Kane out to the car to interrogate him. Ben and I remained in the cottage with Mrs. Gorman. She was a tall blonde, thin-faced and nervous. She spoke with a decided accent. We questioned her for more than 2 hours. We got nowhere.
Why don't you sit down, Mrs. Gorman? Relax.
How can anyone relax? These questions. You have no right to do this.
Well, maybe you haven't got it straight, Miss Gorman. This is a pretty important matter. We'd like to find out about your little girl.
I told you I don't know. She ran away.
Yes, ma'am. Now, we've had 10 different versions. You stopped at a hotel in Nevada and she disappeared. You were at an auto court in Bakersfield. She ran away during the night. We've heard just about all of them. Now, how about the truth?
I've told you everything I'm going to tell you. I don't know what's happened to the kid. She's gone, that's all. She's gone.
There's got to be an explanation for it. Where is she gone?
She ran away. How many times do I have to tell you? I left with Raph. We went out of the city. After a few days, Nancy got lonesome. She wanted to see her father. We were asleep one night, and she ran away. That's all there is to it. Simple. Why can't you understand?
Well, you're going to have to do better than that, Miss Gorman. Now, how about the truth? What happened?
You can't keep me here all night. Where's Raph? I want Raph.
Why'd you take the child with you in the first place, Miss Gorman? It's pretty obvious that you didn't want her. Did Kane want you to take her along?
Oh, no. He wants me to leave her. Just he and I. That's all he wanted. Should have left her there, all this trouble, questions.
There's an easy remedy, ma'am. What'd you really do with the little girl?
She wanted off. It's the truth. We didn't know it. She wanted off. We couldn't help it.
How about the little dress we found in that auto court with stains on it?
The same questions. You always ask the same questions.
What about the dress, ma'am?
Do I always have to repeat? I told you. Raph got his hand. He was shaving. It was just an old dress, a rag. Raph bandaged his hand with it.
Well, you usually wear bandages a while, don't you? Don't just throw them away.
It was only a scratch. He didn't need the rag very long.
Quite a few stains on the dress, ma'am. Must have been more than just a scratch.
No, it was just a scratch. Can't you believe anything I say?
No, not so far.
Please. Can't I go outside for a few minutes? I have a headache. It's so hot in here.
All right, Miss Gorman.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Yeah, thanks.
The air, it's so good. Terrible headache.
You mind telling us something, Miss Gorman?
Please. Can't you let me alone for a minute?
Why did you leave your husband?
Him? Any woman would leave him. It's Raph. I love Raph.
And your little girl, what about her?
My husband wanted her, not me. I'm just not like that. I didn't want her in the first place. It was a mistake. A terrible mistake.
Is that why you got rid of her?
What?
Now, it's pretty obvious by this time, ma'am. When you left your husband, you took your little girl along for spite. Kane didn't want her. You found out you didn't need her, so you got rid of her. Now, is that it?
I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth. I didn't say that at all.
Joe, Ben?
Yeah, Mac, over here.
Kane's given us half the story. Shouldn't be too hard to get the rest.
It's a lie. There's no story to tell. Nancy ran away. That's all we know.
Mac?
Kane says they tried some kind of a death pact. He and Mrs. Gorman here got in a room and turned on the gas.
He didn't tell you. He didn't tell you.
I'm afraid so, ma'am. That's your boyfriend's story.
What else, Mac?
Well, as I say, Kane and Mrs. Gorman got in the room, agreed to end it all. They had a little girl with them in the room.
Well, why was that?
Kane says he doesn't know. Seemed to simplify things, having the kid with him.
He tell you what happened?
Yeah, they turned on the gas.
No. Don't. Never mind.
Miss Gorman?
Never mind. You don't have to say it.
You want to tell us about it? Miss Gorman?
Yes. I'll tell you.
3 a.m. We went back inside the cottage at the auto court. We gave her a cigarette, and Barbara Gorman sat down and told us the story. 4 days after she'd left with her 2-year-old daughter and Ralph Kane, she knew she'd made a mistake. She admitted that she never should have taken the child. She said the little girl seemed to be in their way all the time. Kane was all for deserting the child or sending her back to her father. Mrs. Gorman wouldn't agree to it, just out of pure spite. One night in an auto court, she and Kane had a big drinking party. They brooded over the mix-up that they'd gotten themselves into. Kane didn't have any money to get married. He knew he'd lost his job. Even if they could get married, Mrs. Gorman wasn't sure she could get a divorce. Another full day and night of drinking, and they decided on a lover's death pact. They turned on the gas.
I don't get it, Mrs. Gorman. Why'd you have your little girl in the room with you? Why didn't you leave her with somebody, with anybody?
Why? She was mine, wasn't she? I thought we could go together, all three of us, but it didn't work that way.
Well, what happened?
Well, Raph and I woke up. Throats were burning. My eyes were burning. I looked over Nancy. She wasn't moving. It was just like she was asleep.
And what'd you do then?
We got in the car and left. We found a nice place in the desert. There were nice flowers there. We buried Nancy.
How about you and Ralph Kane? You knew you were in deeper. Why didn't you try it again?
Oh, we did, a couple of times. We loved each other. It's the only thing we could do, but every time we tried, we couldn't go through with it. We tried. We never could finish it. Ralph got a job. We were going to buy a gun. Tomorrow, we try again.
Can you show us where you buried your little girl?
Yes. Place in the desert, out near Palm Springs. It was a nice place. There's lots of nice flowers around. You understand, don't you? We were in love, Raph and I.
Yeah.
My husband wouldn't understand the way I loved Raph. It was everything. It was the whole world, Raph and I. I didn't mean it that way for Nancy. It was a mistake. You've got to understand I didn't mean it that way.
That's the way it is.
It doesn't matter. You can't hurt us, not Raph and I. You can't take away what we've got. You'll never take that away.
All right, you want to get your coat?
Yes. It doesn't matter what happens. It's for Raph. I don't care what they do. I'll keep on loving him. The same way I love him now. It doesn't matter. We'll pay for our mistakes.
Yeah, lady. They're going to cost you. At 5 a.m., we put in a call for Lieutenant Lee Jones and the crime lab crew and the coroner. When they arrived at the auto court, we drove to the spot in the desert near Palm Springs where Ralph Kane and Mrs. Gorman pointed out the spot where they buried Nancy. The body was uncovered at the exact spot. It was taken back to town to the county morgue, where an autopsy was performed. Kane and Mrs. Gorman were booked on suspicion of murder. By 5 o'clock that afternoon, we had the results of the autopsy.
Yeah, Doc. Uh-huh. Right. Thank you. Bye.
What's the story, Mac?
Not what we thought.
How do you mean?
I think Mrs. Gorman sold us a bill of goods. Little girl didn't die in a room full of gas.
What'd the doc say?
He found 2 bullet holes in the body.
That night, after hours of interrogation, Ralph Kane and Mrs. Barbara Gorman both broke down and confessed that they'd killed the child in cold blood. They pleaded drunkenness, that they weren't responsible for their actions. They were returned to their cells and held without bail. The child's father, Philip Gorman, was notified. The following morning, Ben and I accompanied him to the county morgue.
It's this way, Mr. Gorman.
Oh, thanks.
You sure you want to go through with this, sir? Mr. Gorman?
Well, I might as well tell you the truth. I'm not sure I do.
It isn't going to help much, Mr. Gorman. Believe me, it isn't.
I just wanted to see you just once more.
Yeah, well, it doesn't work out. Wouldn't be the same. Not the way you remember it.
Just wanted to see. I just wanted to find out.
What's that?
About her mother, Ralph Kane. What is it that can make them do it? Little girl, she's only 2. What can make anybody do a thing like that?
Your wife called it love.
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On September 10th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 89, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, tonight you've heard just a few of the reasons why you should smoke Fatima. It sums up this way. Fatima gives you all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has. Tomorrow, buy Fatima in the golden yellow package. Remember, they're extra mild with a different, better flavor and aroma.
Mrs. Barbara Gorman and Ralph Donald Kane were tried and convicted in Superior Court of murder in the first degree. Mrs. Gorman was sentenced to life imprisonment. Kane received the death penalty. He was executed at the State Penitentiary, San Quentin, California.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Bill of Rights section of the United States Constitution protects our freedom. Today, that freedom is endangered by tyranny and aggression. Every American must help make our free government an example to all peoples by dedicating himself to a constant, active citizenship. Freedom needs you.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Stay tuned for Counter Spy, next over most NBC stations.
The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, brings you Dragnet.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to burglary detail. A gang of clever thieves are at work in your city. In 3 months, they've looted fashionable homes of $100,000 in furs and jewels. There's no clue to their identity. Your job? Get them. In Fatima, the difference is quality.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Quality of tobaccos. The finest domestic and Turkish varieties, extra mild. Superbly blended to give you Fatima's much different, much better flavor and aroma.
Quality of manufacture. Smooth, round, perfect Fatima cigarettes. Rolled in the finest paper money can buy. Manufactured in the newest and most modern of all cigarette factories.
Quality. Even to the appearance of the bright, clean, golden yellow Fatima package.
So compare Fatima yourself today.
You'll find Fatima gives you all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
Yes, light up with Fatima. Your first puff will tell you...
Ah, that's different.
Because in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, January 10th. It was cold in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of burglary detail. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Captain Wisdom. My name's Friday. It was 11:15 a.m. when we got back to the city hall. Captain Wisdom's office.
Hi, Skipper.
Hi. How'd you make out?
Not too good. Same old story.
Anybody in the house when the thieves broke in?
Yeah, the children's nurse was there. She said the burglary took place about midnight. She was asleep in bed at the time.
Uh-huh.
The nurse said she woke up when she heard the thieves forcing their way in through a side door. She jumped out of bed, ran for the telephone in the hallway, and they grabbed her before she could reach it.
Do her any harm?
Well, a little, yeah. They tied her up, locked her in a closet.
Same MO as the other job, Skipper. 3 men. Each of them wore gloves and a mask. They took all the furs and jewelry they could find, nothing else.
Nurse give you the same general description on the 3 of them?
Yeah, it's not going to help much. Said 2 of the men were tall, medium build, and 1 was short, heavy build. She was so rattled she couldn't even remember the clothes they had on.
12 jobs for the same gang in 3 months. We don't even have a good description of them. How slow can we move?
Doing everything we can, Skipper.
Excuse me. Burglary, Wisdom. Uh-huh. Not until 2 o'clock? No, that's all right. 2 o'clock sharp. Right. Bye. Just had an appointment canceled out. How about a cup of coffee downstairs?
Yeah.
I didn't even have a chance for breakfast this morning.
Fine with me.
Well, grab my hat, will you?
Yeah, I'll get it. Here you go.
Thanks.
Guess you talked to the owners of the house, huh? The place was broken into last night?
Yeah, we did. Mr. and Miss Peterson. They got home a couple hours after the burglary, took a quick inventory.
What did they find missing?
Furs and jewels, same as the other jobs, almost $12,000 worth. It's the biggest haul yet.
I don't have to spell it out for you. We need a break on this thing. We need it bad.
More pressure from the front office, huh?
It's coming from all sides. The victims are insurance companies and newspapers. They got a right to cry. Those thieves have been grabbing furs and jewels for 3 months.
We're doing everything about it we can do, Skipper. Planning stakeout, working our informants, running down every lead we can get our hands on. Covered every angle I can think of.
They don't worry about the angles we cover. They want results. They want their property back.
Well, go ahead, Skipper.
Go ahead. Yeah. Now, how about the stuff they took on the job last night? You get it on the stolen property list?
Yeah, it's all listed. That's one thing that really gets me. What are the thieves doing with all that stuff, the furs and the jewelry? We've had every pawn shop in the city on the alert since they started working. Checked on every possible outlet we know of, any place they could use to dump the stuff. They haven't turned up a trace of it.
No results in those APBs you got out?
Well, yeah, a few, but none of them have panned out.
How about trying the cafeteria here? They got pretty good coffee.
Yeah, good idea.
Why don't you two grab a table? I'll get the coffee.
Right, Ben. Oh, hold the cream on mine, will you?
Right, Skipper.
How's this? Is all right?
Yes, fine. 3 chairs?
Yeah.
Okay. How about it Friday? You or Ben got any ideas at all?
Well, there's one thing we wanted to talk over with you. We were kicking the idea around on the way back into the office.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like a smoke?
Oh, thanks.
There you go. Last night we were comparing the different stories we got from the burglary victims.
What? Thank you.
You get a light, all right?
Yeah, it's all right, thanks. Go ahead.
Well, that's one thing that all their stories seem to have in common. Now, that's counting all 12 victims.
Yeah, what's that?
Well, let's see. I got a piece of paper here. I got it all figured out. Yeah. We know all the victims are fairly wealthy people. They go out quite a bit, parties, nightclubs, things like that.
Yeah. None of them were at home at the time the burglaries were pulled.
That's right, yeah.
Here you go. There's your Skipper. No cream.
Thanks.
Joe?
Thank you very much. I was just telling the captain about that idea we were talking about on the way back in.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right, so none of the victims were home at the time of the burglary. Where does it go from there?
Well, for one thing, we all pretty much agree that there must be a finger man working with the gang, don't we? Somebody who knows the victims aren't home. Somebody who also knows the victims aren't wearing the furs or jewels on that particular night, is that right?
That's right. We've been going on that assumption. Now, the question is, who's the finger man?
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at here. Ben and I compared the victims' stories. We found out that in every case, each of the victims had been out in some public place from 3 to 5 days before the night of the burglary. Now, at that time, every one of them wore furs and expensive jewelry.
Yeah.
Why don't you read off some of those examples we got there, Joe?
Okay. Well, here's the first one. Mr. and Mrs. Charles King. Now, on December 10th, they went to a nightclub out in Hollywood. Mrs. King wore a fur coat and quite a bit of jewelry. On December 14th, they went out to a theater. They didn't dress up at all. They left the furs and jewels at home. That's the night that their house was burglarized.
And this same pattern shows up in every one of the victims' stories?
No, it's not quite that close, but the same elements seem to be there.
Here's another one, Skipper. Let's see. Mr. and Mrs. Lyons. November 20th, they went to a big party at a restaurant out on Sunset. Woman wore jewelry, expensive fur wrap. A week later, they went to a party at a friend's house. Mrs. Lyons left her furs and jewelry at home, and the same night, the thieves broke in.
Yeah, that's a pretty good angle. How do you tie up all the loose ends?
Well, let's see a paper again, Ben. We got it halfway figured right here. Just before each of the victims was taken, they appeared in a public place, wearing the furs and jewelry. We've got a list of all the places, nightclubs, restaurants. There's about 6 of them here.
So the finger man for the gang must be watching these 6 places.
He spots the people with expensive furs and jewelry and tips off the gang. They watch the house. Next time the people go out and the thieves see the woman isn't wearing her furs and things, and they move in.
It's not a sure thing. We're just guessing, you understand? What do you think?
Well, it sounds like a fair guess. Let's move on it.
We'll have to cover each of those nightclubs and the restaurants. It's going to take more men, more time. It could be nothing but a blind alley.
We got the men, we got the time. Let's try it.
10 p.m., Wednesday, January 10th. Our idea for stopping the burglary gang by reaching their spotter or finger man was put into operation. The half-dozen nightclubs and restaurants where we thought the spotter might be checking off richly dressed couples as future burglary victims were placed under strict surveillance. Managers and employees of each of the places were questioned. It went slow. The first week got us 4 leads to check out. They led nowhere. Any and all suspicious-looking persons loitering in or near the clubs and restaurants that we had staked out were questioned and checked out thoroughly. Another week passed, no results. In the meantime, on January 23rd, the burglary gang hit again, this time at a dentist's home in the Hollywood Hills. The maid, a Miss Ilsa Bergstrom, was the only one present at the time of the burglary. Ben and I drove out to interview her.
It was soon before midnight. The Mr. and Mrs. was gone out. They were sitting with the television.
The 3 men broke in the side door. Is that right, Miss Bergstrom?
Yeah, the side door, I think so. They were sitting with the television watching. I hear this sound. I turn around, and the 3 men, they're right there in the room with me. I thought I could scream, but I couldn't.
Well, do you remember what the men looked like, Miss Bergstrom? How they were dressed?
I don't know. I was so much being frightened. One of them had a jacket on, I think. A dark jacket. The others, I don't know.
Anything else about them that you noticed?
Yeah, they had masks all over their faces. I couldn't see. I jumped up. I tried to scream, but I was so much frightened.
What'd they do then, miss?
Yeah, they put a cloth all around my mouth so I couldn't make noise. Then they tied my hands and my feet, and they put me in the closet out there, just by the hallway. I was kicking and hitting at them.
Mm-hmm.
Had you ever seen any of the men before, Miss Bird?
No, never before.
Do you think you'd know any of the men if you saw them again?
I shouldn't be sure. One of them, maybe I might know him.
Well, how do you mean? Did you get a look at his face?
Yeah, only it was very quick. Then they was putting me in the closet. I was hitting and kicking at them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the men, I knocked his hat off. It fell on the floor. I pulled at the thing on his face, the mask. Almost it came off.
Well, from what you could see, what did the man look like?
Blonde hair, I can remember. It's not so much on top here. It's only on the sides here.
Mm-hmm.
And there was right there by the forehead, hair, a scar going over that way.
Yeah. Was he a big man, do you know? As big as the other two?
No, he was a smaller man. He was bigger this way, fatter. Yeah. He was so mad when I knocked his hat off, I thought maybe he'd kill me. They only put me in the closet, and then they closed the door. I could hear them upstairs going through the Mr. and Mrs. room.
And you're pretty sure of the description you've given us, Miss
Oh,
Bird?
yeah, the scar, the blonde hair. Not so much on top. I remember that. It was... Well, I was so much frightened, I thought he'd kill me.
Mm-hmm. Now, after they locked you in the closet, they didn't come back? That's the last you saw them?
Yeah, they didn't come back to me. I could hear them moving around upstairs, and then I could hear them leave after a while. It was like all night before the Mr. and Mrs. came home and found me. I was so much frightened. This thing wouldn't happen in Sweden. That's where I come from, Sweden.
Yes, ma'am. You sure there's nothing else about these men that you've noticed? Something we ought to know about?
No, everything I saw just what happened. I told you the way it was. This never would have happened in Sweden. Not like this. These robbers like this.
Burglars, ma'am.
Yeah, these burglars. I thought I'd be dead. Never would happen in Sweden like this.
You mean you don't have burglars in Sweden?
Oh, yeah. We have burglars.
Well, then just how do you mean that?
We have burglars, but they don't break in the house when somebody's there. They're a little bit gentlemen.
Is that so?
Yeah, they wait till everybody's gone from the house. Then they break it. Even burglars should be gentlemen a little bit.
Before we left the house, we checked with the owners, took their crime report and a list of their stolen property, some $6,000 in jewelry and fur coats. The maid's description of one of the three men in the gang wasn't complete, but it was the best that we'd had on him in 3 months. Frank Cunningham in the Eye Bureau had the description of the scar on the suspect's forehead checked through the oddity file. Meantime, Ben and I paired up the additional facts about the suspect. The scar, the color and condition of his hair, along with his general description, his approximate weight and height. We had the stats office make a run for us on all ex-cons with burglary records who fitted the overall description. They came up with a list of 10 names, and we started checking them out. One of the first listed was a Russell Snow. We checked his last known address, but he'd moved. His mail was being forwarded in care of his brother, George Snow, who managed the Neptune Plunge, a public indoor swimming pool in the East Hollywood neighborhood. We drove out to interview the brother.
Pretty good size for an indoor pool, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's a nice layout they got.
Must be the office straight ahead there. Hey, Joe. Joe, look.
What's that?
That girl over there. Look at that bathing suit she's got on.
Yeah, they keep getting smaller, don't they?
Makes you embarrassed just to look at them. Yeah, maybe I'm just getting old.
Yeah.
Yes, sir? We're looking for George Snow.
Yeah, I'm him.
Police officers, Mr. Snow. I'd like to talk to you a few minutes if we could.
Oh, yeah. Let me grab a towel over and get dried off, though.
Sure.
Come on over. Pull up one of these deck chairs here.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Well, what is it, officers? What can I do for you?
You have a brother, isn't that right, sir? A Russell Snow?
Yeah, that's right. Russ is my brother. Anything wrong?
Well, we'd like to locate him if we could. Do you know where we can find him?
No, I don't think I can. Last I heard from Russ was about 6 months ago. Said he was going to take a job in Minneapolis.
Mm-hmm.
Not in trouble again, is he?
Not that we know of. We'd like to locate him, that's all.
I don't think I can help you much. Russ isn't much of a letter writer. Only time I hear from him is when he's in town.
We've checked at the last place your brother was staying. They told us he left word to forward all his mail here to you. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Russ asked me to take care of it. No letters have come through so far, though.
Mm-hmm. Were you to hang on to his mail or send it on to him in Minneapolis?
No, I was going to hang on to him. Russ said he'd pick up his mail next time he was through. As I say, that was 6 months ago. I haven't seen or heard from him since.
Then you wouldn't know if he was actually in Minneapolis or not.
Well, no, I wouldn't. Guess you know my brother Russell had a police record.
Yes, sir, we do.
He had that trouble a couple of years ago, that burglary rap. I think Russ learned his lesson.
Are you your brother's only living relative? I mean, is there anyone else in town who might have heard from him?
I don't know, officer. Excuse me just a minute.
All right, kids, no running around the side of the pool, you hear? You slip and break your neck. No more running.
Sorry, gotta watch Michael Hall.
Yes, sir.
Like I was saying, I can't think of anybody who might have heard from Russ. I'm his only relation, but he does have a few friends around town. I mean, legitimate fellas, you know.
Yeah,
They come around once in a while, drop in and say hello.
Have any of them heard from your brother?
He might have, but I didn't ask him. There's old Matt Garson, he's a good friend of my brother's. He was in the other day, but he didn't say anything about hearing from Russ. Might be that he has. Maybe he didn't think to mention it.
Where does this Matt Garson stay, do you know?
I really couldn't tell you, officer. That's a real character, kind of a floater. Doesn't stay with one job more than 2 months. Like last week when he was in here.
Yes, sir?
He's a real pitchman. Gave me a big sales talk. Biggest bargain on earth. Said he'd sell me a couple of them real cheap. I didn't have any use for them.
What's that, sir?
Fur coats.
Before we left, George Snow gave us a complete description of Matt Garson, together with the names of 5 of Garson's acquaintances who might know of his whereabouts. When Ben and I got back to the city hall, we checked Garson's name and description through R&I. He had a record of 2 fairly recent arrests, but no convictions. Both arrests were for suspicion of burglary. We checked on Garson's last known residence. He'd moved, no forwarding address. His last place of employment was listed as the Park Tivoli nightclub out on Wilshire Boulevard. The Park Tivoli was one of the 6 places that we'd staked out as a possible working ground for the burglary gang's fingerman, a place where he could spot expensively dressed persons, check on their home addresses, and line them up as future burglary victims. Ben put in a call to the manager of the Park Tivoli to check on Garson's employment.
What was that, sir? Last July. I see. Well, yes, sir, we'll probably be out tonight. Right, thank you. Bye.
What'd you get?
Garson worked out there, all right. Parking lot attendant. He quit last July. If he's the guy checking off the customers' furs and jewels, he's in a perfect spot.
Yeah.
Manager told me that Garson has a girlfriend. She still works at the club. Might be the answer, Joe.
Well, how do you figure?
She runs a hat check stand.
You are in the Communications Division of a Metropolitan Police Department, the teletype room.
.43, LOS 52951. 12:03 p.m. APB. WMA 150, 5'6", dark hair, dark eyes. Wearing gray suit, no hat. Suspect is wearing glasses. Heavy build, 22 years. Suspect is armed with blue steel revolver. Any information? Forward.
You have just heard a teletype description of a suspect. This information will apply to many, but careful screening will eliminate all but one.
You'll find the same is true when you examine king-size cigarettes. Yes, careful screening will eliminate all but Fatima.
Compare Fatima. Fatimas are the same length as any other king-size cigarettes, 85 millimeters. Fatima has the same circumference, 1 1/64 inches around.
And Fatima filters the smoke exactly the same long distance as other king-size cigarettes.
But in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma. You get all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
So compare Fatima yourself. Your first puff will tell you...
Ah, that's different.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality. Buy Fatima. Best of all long cigarettes.
One of the biggest problems that faces a police officer working the burglary detail is not only apprehending the thief, but also recovering the stolen property. Dozens of criminals of this type will spend 5, 10, or even 15 years in prison if they know that on their release they will have a stake of thousands of dollars in stolen property which they've hidden somewhere to start over again with. Thursday, January 26th, 5 p.m. We got out a broadcast and an APB on the burglary suspect, Matt Garson. Then we began checking back on his girlfriend, Virginia Ramsey, who worked as a hat check girl at the Park Tivoli nightclub on Wilshire Boulevard. It was one of the 6 probable places where we thought that the finger man for the burglary gang was lining up potential victims. Despite the fact that she often associated with known criminal suspects, the Ramsey girl had no previous criminal record herself. That night, after she reported in for work at the club, Ben and I checked her apartment. In one of the closets, we found 3 expensive fur coats. They were all identified as property taken in previous burglaries by the gang. In a strong box in the desk, we found a half a dozen pieces of expensive jewelry, also identified on the stolen property list. Ben and I got in the car and drove to the Park Tivoli nightclub.
Your hat, sir? Check your hat?
Your name Virginia Ramsey?
Yes, that's right.
Police officers, Miss Ramsey. Like to talk to you downtown.
Beg your pardon?
I say we're police officers. Here's our identification. Like to talk to you downtown.
What's it all about? I haven't done anything.
Then there's no reason to worry. We'd just like to ask you a few questions, that's all.
What about?
A man by the name of Matt Garson. I understand you know him quite well.
No, I don't know him. I don't even know what you're talking about.
Want to get your coat, Miss Ramsey? We'll talk it over downtown, huh?
I'm working now. Listen, I won't be off till 2 o'clock. I can't just walk off the job.
We'll just talk to the manager. He's going to have one of the other girls take your place. Do you want to get your coat, please?
All right. You sure you checked with the manager? I don't want to lose my job leaving like
We
that.
talked to him. It's all right.
This way, please, out the side door.
I'd like to know what this whole thing's all about. I think I have a right to know pulling me off a job like this.
We told you, Miss Ramsey, it's about a friend of yours, Matt Garson. He used to work here at the club, didn't he?
I wouldn't know. A lot of people work here. I don't know them all. Why should you want him anyway?
Do you know him?
I think I might, yes. Not sure. Why do you want it?
For interrogation, just like to ask him a few questions.
Why?
You ready to admit that you know Garson?
I think I might. Yeah, I know him.
Want to get in, Miss Ramsey?
Still don't know what it's all about. Why do you want Matt Garson?
Same reason we want you, suspicion of burglary.
You don't know what you're talking about. You can't prove anything against me.
We already have, miss.
Huh?
We found 3 fur coats in your apartment. There was some jewelry there, too.
Those things are mine. Every one of them. They're all mine.
All right, come on. You're wasting time. They're stolen property. You know that.
How about it, miss? You want to tell us about Matt Garson? Where is he?
Told you. Told you the first time.
Yeah?
I don't know him.
10 p.m. We drove the suspect, Virginia Ramsey, downtown to the city hall and took her to the interrogation room. We questioned her continuously until well past midnight. She refused to admit anything. We gave her time to rest a little and sent out for some food. Then we resumed the interrogations. 2 a.m. The Ramsey girl still refused to admit any connection with Matt Garson, his friend Russell Snow, or any members of the burglary gang. We stayed with it. By 4 a.m., we'd halfway convinced her that protecting the members of the gang wasn't the answer, that the best thing for her to do would be to cooperate. 5:30 a.m.
Can I have a cigarette?
Yeah. Here you are.
I'll tell you about it. I know Matt Garson. He's one of the gang.
You know where he is?
No. He got me into it. He made me do it. There wasn't anything else I can do.
What did he make you do?
Well, when I was checking coats and things at the club, I was supposed to watch for customers with money, expensive furs and jewels. I found out who they were, and then I'd tell Matt. He'd tell the others.
Who are the others?
One of them's Johnny Lang. There are a couple of others, but I don't know their names. Believe me, Sergeant, Matt made me do it. He got me into it before I knew what it was all about. When I found out, he threatened to frame me if I didn't go along with him.
Do you know where any of these men live, where they hang out?
No. None of them, not even Matt. Ever since he moved, he wouldn't give me his new address.
Do you think Garson will try to contact you at your apartment in the next few days, maybe?
No, I don't think so. Not until after the next job. They're waiting on it now. They've been watching the house.
Which house is that?
Place out in West Hollywood. Wealthy people. They were in the club about a week ago.
And the gang's waiting for them to go out some night and leave their valuables at home, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right. Matt says it's an easy house to break into. He thinks it ought to be a cinch.
Matt ought to know better.
Huh?
It's the easy ones you trip over. Before we booked her in on suspicion of burglary, Virginia Ramsey gave us the name and address of the people in West Hollywood who were supposedly the next victims on the burglary gang's list. Later in the morning, we drove out to see the people. A Mr. and Mrs. Thomas Thornton told them the story and laid out our plans, which they agreed to. That night, the Thorntons left their home a few minutes before 9. They were simply dressed, no furs, no jewels. At 9:35, 3 men scaled a fence at the rear of the Thorntons' home and broke in through a side door. Right behind them was a detail of a half a dozen officers who moved in and made the arrest. The 3 suspects were taken downtown, where they were identified as Russell Snow, Matt Garson, and Howard Ferris. We searched their apartments, their cars, and garages. There was no trace of the stolen property. Each of the men were brought to the interrogation room separately for questioning. Matt Garson was the first. He denied any knowledge of where the loot was hidden.
That's the truth. I don't know where the stuff is. I work for the outfit, that's all.
You've been working for 3 months without a payoff. Is that what you're trying to tell us?
Well, we haven't been turning over everything we got, but been holding out half the stuff, selling it on the side. I just work for the outfit, that's all.
That's not the way we get it, Garson. You're supposed to be the big man. You masterminded the deal.
Me? Who told you that?
Your girlfriend, Virginia Ramsey. We picked her up yesterday. She told us everything.
What'd she tell you?
You're the big man. It was your idea. You ran the works.
What about it, Garson?
Big joke, Sergeant, on both of us.
What do you mean?
You can ask the other boys. They'll tell you the same thing. We can prove it, too. There's only one boss in this operation.
Yeah?
Virginia Ramsey.
For a 23-year-old girl, it seemed like a new record of some kind, if it was true. We checked the other suspects, Russell Snow and Howard Ferris. They told us substantially the same story. The Ramsey girl had formulated all the plans and directed the entire operation of the gang since its inception. They insisted that they had no idea where the stolen property was hidden, but they did know that the Ramsey girl had a safety deposit box in a downtown bank. We made a canvass of banks in the downtown area, and a day later we located the safety deposit box listed in Miss Ramsey's name. We obtained a court order, and the box was open. In it, we found practically all of the stolen jewelry, almost $50,000 worth. Ben and I went back to the main jail, where we had Virginia Ramsey signed out for investigation. We brought her to the interrogation room, where we confronted her with the evidence.
I didn't think you'd find out. I didn't think you'd ever find out.
How about the furs, Miss Ramsey?
I got the key. You can have it. I rented a private garage. I got them stored in there.
All of them?
Just about, yeah. You picked up the others in my apartment.
How'd you manage to run this whole operation? Those men you had working for you, you cut them in for practically nothing. They were experts, the best in the business.
That's why I hired them. They're the best. It's too bad. Should have worked out. Too bad it didn't go.
You had a pretty fair run.
Wasn't half bad for me, was it? Only 23. First time I ever tried anything like it.
What gave you the idea?
I don't know. I wanted things. Pretty smart setup, though, don't you think, Sarge?
How's that?
Wouldn't you say I played the whole thing pretty smart?
Oh, I don't know. You figure it.
What?
You're in jail, aren't you?
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent. On March 28th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 89, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial. Now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, if you smoke a long cigarette, I want you to get acquainted with Fatima's. This weekend, for instance, when you're relaxing and taking it easy, you'll really appreciate Fatima's better flavor and aroma. And I know you'll like Fatima's extra mildness. Make a note tomorrow. Buy Fatima's in the familiar yellow carton.
23-year-old Virginia Ramsey, the leader of the gang, was tried and convicted on 4 counts of first-degree burglary and 4 counts of receiving stolen property. The 3 male members of the gang were convicted of first-degree burglary, also 4 counts. They are now serving their terms in the state penitentiary. First-degree burglary is punishable by imprisonment for not less than 5 years. Receiving stolen property is punishable by imprisonment for not less than 6 months, nor more than 5 years. Ladies and gentlemen, vacation time is here again, and a great many of you will be taking trips in your automobile. Danger is never absent from the highways of America. Be careful. The care you take may save a life, and that life may be your own.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Stay tuned for Counter Spy, next over most NBC stations.
The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, brings you Dragnet.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to Juvenile Bureau. Dozens of petty theft cases are reported in one of the residential areas in your city. The victims, neighborhood businessmen. The suspects, teenage high school students. Your job? Stop them.
More and more smokers coast to coast are saying this about king-size Fatima every day. They're different. Better.
They are different. So pleasing.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality. You see, Fatima contains the finest domestic and Turkish tobaccos superbly blended. And Fatima is extra mild, with a much different, much better flavor and aroma.
Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
You'll find Fatima gives you all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality. Next time, buy Fatima. Best of all long cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Tuesday, February 4th. It was cloudy in Los Angeles. We were working the night watch out of Juvenile Bureau, assigned to University Division. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Inspector Bowling. My name's Friday. We were on the way out from the office, and it was 7:13 p.m. when we got to the corner of South Waverly and Chester Avenue. The grocery store.
Guess that's him back there at the meat counter.
Yeah. Come on.
Looks like he's getting ready to close up.
Yeah, I guess we just about made it in time, huh? Excuse me, sir?
Yes, sir. Help you, gentlemen?
We're looking for Henry Loomis.
Yes, sir. That's my name.
Police officers, Mr. Loomis. My name's Friday. I believe I talked to you on the phone.
Oh, yeah.
This is my partner, Sergeant Romero.
Hi, Mr. Loomis. Wonder if you'd mind waiting a half a minute, officers. Just getting a little bookwork straightened out here. Today's receipts.
Yeah, I'll go right in.
Won't take but a minute. Let's see here. 37, 45, 37. There we go. Ain't that lousy bookwork going to get a girl to come in and do it one of these days? Let's go up front here and talk.
All right, sir, fine.
Pull up a couple of stools there. Might as well be comfortable.
Yes, thank you.
You talked to any of the other merchants in the neighborhood yet?
No, sir, not yet. We'd like to find out what you have to tell us first.
Well, it's one of those high school kids, I can tell you that. I'm sure of it. I don't want to sound like an old grouch, but this stealing's got to stop.
You get quite a bit of business from the high school trade, do you?
At the noon hour, and then just after school lets out. Usually have quite a bunch of them in here around those times.
Mm-hmm. Do you especially cater to the high school crowd? I mean, do you serve lunch here or anything like that?
No, I don't. I usually get the kids to take their lunch. They come in and buy soda water or milk to drink with their sandwiches. They seem like such a nice class of kids. I didn't think they were thieves.
Well, how long has this stealing been going on, Mr. Loomis?
I'd say about 10 days, 2 weeks. It's not very hard for them to get away with it. 15 or 20 kids crowd in here during noon hour. I'm usually busy up at the counter. It's no great trick for any one of them to make off with a couple of dollars worth of merchandise.
You say this happens just about every day?
Every day the kids are in here, yeah. I tried playing detective myself for a while, trying to catch the guilty ones. Didn't do much good.
Mm-hmm. As long as this stealing's been going on, Mr. Loomis, has it ever amounted to more than just a few dollars worth of food every day?
No, that's the funny part of it, Sergeant. When I check back on my inventories, it's always just about the same amount. A few cans of meat, vegetables, butter, a few loaves of bread. It's not so much the value of the stuff. I just don't like the idea of some kid making a fool out of me day after day.
Has your cash register ever been tampered with, you know? I mean, any money stolen?
No, sir, that's another thing I can't understand. If a kid's going to turn thief, you'd think he'd go after the cash. Whoever's doing it, they've never tried anything like that here.
Well, how about some of the other merchants in the neighborhood, sir? You mentioned on the phone there were a couple of others having the same trouble that you are.
Yes, sir, there's George Brophy. He's the newspaper distributor, and there's Collins. He's got the grocery place up the street. You can talk to them. I gave you their addresses on the phone, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
Just one more thing, Mr. Loomis, about this crowd of high school boys that hang around here. Any of them in particular you might suspect?
As a matter of fact, there is. I certainly can't prove anything, but I just have a feeling about it. I don't like the boy.
Just one boy, sir?
Yes, sir. There may be more than one that's guilty, but this young fellow I'm pretty sure of.
What's his name?
I hear the kids call him Harry, red-haired boy, curly red hair, tall, a few freckles. Won't be hard to get his last name if we need it.
Mm-hmm. Is there anything else you can think of that we ought to know?
You go up the street and talk to the other two men, Sergeant, George Brophy and Collins. They might have something more for you. I think I've told you about everything.
All right, Mr. Loomis. I've got your home phone here. If we want to contact you later tonight, I'll call you there. Is that all right?
Perfectly all right.
Here's our card, sir. You can call us at that number there anytime.
All right, thank you. What do you think's behind the whole thing, Sergeant, this cheap stealing, nickel and dime stuff?
I don't know, sir. We'll try and find out for you.
Just doesn't make sense stealing like that day after day. You'd think even a kid would know that you can't go on stealing forever.
Yes, sir. A lot of them give it a try. From the very start, the whole pattern of the case and the thief's method of operation made little or no sense at all. The thefts had been going on for more than 2 weeks, and they'd all taken place in a 12-square block area. In each of the 24 cases reported to us, not one of the thefts had been for more than $5, either in cash or merchandise. The thief's scene of operation included 2 grocery stores, a drugstore, coin boxes attached to the newsstands in the neighborhood, and a 5 and 10 cent variety store. With one exception, all of the cases involved theft of merchandise only. The breaking open of coin boxes attached to newsstands was the single instance in which money was taken. The total sum was less than $3.50. 7:40 p.m. Ben and I left the grocery store and went up the street to the home of George Brophy. He was the neighborhood newspaper distributor who operated the coin box newsstands which had been broken into.
Well, I think you can just about count on it, Sergeant. It's one of the kids in the neighborhood doing all this. Either that or a couple of them are working together.
What makes you so sure about it, Mr. Brophy?
Well, for one thing, we got more than our share of kids out this way. A lot of them are from poor families, underprivileged, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they figure it's one way of picking up extra spending money. I got nothing against the kids myself. A few nickels they get out of those boxes, I wouldn't prosecute them for that.
Well, sir, that's not exactly it. The point is they're stealing. If they get away with this small-time stuff, they might figure they're ripe for something bigger. Probably be the best thing in the world for them if we can stop them now and set them on the right track, don't you think?
Yeah. Put in with you there, Sergeant. I don't know how much I can help you, though.
Did you have any idea at all who it might be that's breaking into the coin boxes?
Well, like I say, I have nothing against any kid myself, but there is one of them around the neighborhood I've been a little suspicious about, a red-headed kid.
What's he look like, you know?
Red hair, freckle face, kind of tall and gangly. Typical high school kid. Old Loomis down at the grocery store, he's been a little leery about the same kid, too.
Well, why do you single out this red-haired boy, Mr. Brophy?
Well, he... Oh, excuse me, I better grab
Right
it.
ahead.
Yes. Hello. Oh, yeah, Maggie, hi. 4 of them. When are they born? Is that right? All right. Born this morning. 4 of them, huh? Yeah, just a minute, I'll call. Grace.
Yeah, honey.
It's for you, Maggie Harris.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
Excuse me, officer. A friend of my wife's, her cat just had 4 kittens.
Oh, I see.
Oh, where were we? Oh, yeah, about the kid.
Yes, sir. Why do you suspect
Well, there's a couple reasons, Sergeant. Late one night when I was making my collections, I spotted the boy hanging around one of the newsstands. Didn't look like he had any business there that time of night. He looked up and saw me coming. He turned and ducked down a side street.
Well, do you have any idea where this boy lives, Mr. Brophy?
No, can't say I do. He goes to that high school a few blocks up on South Waverly. I know that. It's the same boy that the grocerman had his eye on.
You said there were a couple of reasons why you were suspicious of this boy, Mr. Brophy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, this other thing doesn't mean too much. There wasn't anything really wrong with it. It just seemed a little queer, that's all.
What was that?
Well, I dropped in at the safety liquor store down the street last week. I wanted to pick up a little something. I saw the same kid in there. He was asking Benny, the guy who runs the place, if he'd sell him a fifth of bourbon. I heard the kid saying it was supposed to be for his father. His father was sick and couldn't come in. Of course, Benny turned him down. He wouldn't sell it to the kid.
And that was the extent of it, huh?
Yeah, that's all. Wasn't anything wrong with it. Kid didn't insist. I thought it was just a little out of line sending a kid after liquor. Well, that's about the size of it.
How about some of the other merchants in the neighborhood who have been bothered with these petty thefts? Do you know if any of them are suspicious of this boy?
No, I wouldn't know that. Henry Loomis down at the store is about the only one I know.
Well, thanks very much, Mr. Brophy. If anything else comes up, you can get us at the number on this card here.
Oh, okay, son. Fine. If I can help at all to clear this thing up, I'd be glad to do it.
Well, we'll probably be checking back with you, and thanks again, sir.
Sure is funny, the whole thing. I get a big laugh out of it.
Sir?
Oh, I mean the friend of my wife's called up, Maggie Harris. Cat had 4 kittens, like I told you.
Uh-huh.
Sure get a big laugh out of that. I kept telling her. She wouldn't believe me.
What's that, sir?
Well, she thought the cat was a male.
The next morning, Ben and I continued checking with various merchants and residents in the neighborhood where the series of petty thefts were taking place. We located and questioned one more shopkeeper who was suspicious of the tall, red-haired boy known as Harry. That afternoon, we went to the high school on South Waverly Avenue to check on him. From his first name and his description, he was identified by the boy's vice principal as Harry Thomas Dunbar. He was 18 years old and a sophomore with an average scholastic record. We were told that Dunbar had left the grounds about half an hour before with the high school's basketball team. The group was headed for one of the local sports pavilions where the team had one of its more important games scheduled for that afternoon. Harry Dunbar was in charge of selling the printed programs for the game. Ben and I drove out to the sports pavilion and checked with one of the boys collecting tickets at the door. He told us we'd find Harry Dunbar inside at the program stand.
These high school kids sure take their basketball seriously, don't they?
Yeah, big turnout, sounds like. We're going to be lucky if we can find that boy in this crowd.
Yeah.
You see him anywhere?
No. Which side is the program stand supposed to be on?
Well, there's a lot of them along and through here on both sides. Guess we better start checking them out.
Yeah. Joe.
Yeah.
That stand back down on the left, you see? Red-headed kid?
Yeah. Let's check him.
Okay.
Programs, dime. Complete programs for the game, 10 cents.
Excuse me, son.
Program, mister?
Your name Harry Dunbar?
Yeah, that's right.
We're police officers, Harry. We'd like to talk to you for a few minutes, if it's all right.
Oh. Well, I can't talk to you now. I'm pretty busy selling these programs here.
Then suppose we wait a few minutes, son. See, you only have a few left there to sell.
No, it wouldn't do any good waiting. When I sell these, I got something else to do.
It's only going to take a few minutes of your time, Harry. We won't keep you long.
What is it, officer? What do you want to talk to me about?
Just have a few questions for you, son, that's all. Can you step out in the lobby with us for just a minute?
What's it all about? I'd like to know.
We'd just as soon not talk about it out here.
Oh, all right. We can go up this ramp here.
All right.
There's a hallway back here. Runs underneath the stands, won't be so noisy.
Fine, we won't keep you long. Just a few routine questions.
This ought to do okay. What is it you want to know about?
Do you know a Mr. Loomis? Harry runs a grocery store near the high school.
Yeah, old man Loomis. I go down to his store and eat lunch sometimes. Why?
How about a Mr. Collins? He runs another store near the high school.
Yeah, I know the place. Sometimes I go there, too. A bunch of the kids hang around there during lunchtime.
We've had quite a few complaints from Collins and Loomis, some of the other stores in the neighborhood, too. We're checking on some of them. Thought maybe you could help us out, Harry.
No, I couldn't help you any. Mr. Collins and that old man Loomis, they don't like us. They want to get us in trouble. I think they're lying.
Lying about what?
About us kids stealing things out of their stores. I bet they even told you I'm stealing things from them.
Are you, Harry?
Of course not. They can't say any of us stole things. They don't know. They can't prove anything.
Do you know the man that distributes newspapers in your neighborhood, son of Mr. Brophy?
Who?
Mr. Brophy. Some of the coin boxes on his newsstands have been broken into. He thought maybe you could tell us something about that.
Why me? I don't know any Mr. Brophy.
Well, he knows you, Harry. He saw you hanging around one of the newsstands one night, and there's something else. He saw you trying to buy a bottle of liquor in the neighborhood. Is that right?
We've had 3 or 4 reports on you, son. What do you say? You want to tell us about it?
They're crazy. I haven't done anything.
Well, you got nothing to worry about, son.
I won't tell you anything.
Look out, Ben. There, grab it. I got him. All right. Hold it up, son.
Let me go. Let me go.
Take it easy, young fellow.
I haven't done anything. I haven't. Now, let me go, please. I haven't done anything.
Why'd you try to run away?
I have to get home. I got to get home right away.
All right, son. We'll take you there.
No, you can't go with me. I have to go alone.
Afraid we're going to have to hold on to you, Harry. Either we take you home or we take you downtown. Which is it?
I tried to tell him I couldn't do everything. I tried, but it didn't work. I can't do everything.
What do you mean, son?
Take me home. I'll let them tell you.
You are in the forgery division of the Metropolitan Police Department. Handwriting analysis.
All right. Now write the alphabet in lowercase, please.
You are listening to a police officer taking a sample of a suspect's handwriting.
This handwriting sample will be compared with a forged signature. Side by side, two signatures may often look alike, but closer examination will prove a world of difference. You'll find the same is true when you compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
Side by side, Fatimas are the same in length and circumference. 85 millimeters long, 1 1/64 inches around.
And Fatima filters the smoke exactly the same long distance as any other king-size cigarette.
But in Fatima, the difference is quality. Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma. Remember, Fatima has all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has. So insist on the best. Next time, buy king-size Fatima.
Wednesday, February 5th, 4:15 p.m. We left the sports pavilion, got in the car, and started to drive our teenage suspect, Harry Dunbar, to his home. On the way, we questioned him about the series of petty thefts which had been going on in his neighborhood. We asked him about stealing merchandise from the grocery store run by Mr. Loomis. He admitted he was responsible. He said he'd been stealing things from the store for more than a month. We asked the boy about the petty thefts from the grocery store operated by Mr. Collins. Again, he told us he was responsible. He also admitted stealing from the neighborhood drugstore and the variety store, in addition to breaking into the coin boxes on the self-service newsstands. In each instance, he described his method of operation. He estimated that over a period of some 4.5 weeks, he'd stolen approximately $50 in merchandise and about $5 in cash. We asked him why. He refused to answer.
You must have had a reason for doing all this, Harry. Why don't you tell us? We're going to find out sooner or later.
Sorry, officer. It's next turn to your left.
Okay.
What's the matter, son? You afraid of what your folks are going to say?
No, that's not it. I never stole anything in my life till this time. When I started in, I didn't think of it as stealing. Something I had to do, that's all. I couldn't help it.
That doesn't make much sense, Harry. What do you mean you couldn't help it?
It's the truth. You gotta believe me. There wasn't anything else I could do.
Well, what was it then? Was somebody forcing you to steal?
No. Can't you just believe me? It's something I had to do. Sergeant, can't you let me off here? I'll walk home the rest of the way. I promise you I'll come in and see you tomorrow.
Well, you know we couldn't do that, son. You've already admitted stealing from a half a dozen stores in the neighborhood, breaking into those coin boxes. It's going to have to be straightened out one way or the other.
But I can pay him back for what I took. I got a job. I'll pay back every one of them.
I believe you, son, but there's still a lot of explaining that's going to have to be done.
This is the 1500 block, Harry. Want to point out your house for us? Son?
Can't we fix it up some other way? We don't have to go to my house, do we?
The sooner you face it, the better. Now, how about it?
Keep on going. It's way down the end of the block there.
Well, now, which is it, son? There's no houses beyond this. It's just that shack down there.
That's my house.
Okay, Harry.
Maybe I better go in first, see if everything's all right.
It'll be all right. We'll come with you. Ben and I followed the boy up the stairs and into the house. From the outside, it looked run down and badly in need of painting. On the inside, it still looked in fair condition except for the housekeeping. The floor of the living room was littered with soiled clothing, ashes, dirt, and dust. The few pieces of furniture didn't look much better. A card table set in one corner was crowded with dirty dishes and scraps of half-eaten food. Across the room was a baby in a crib. Couldn't have been more than a few months old. Apparently, the bedclothes in the crib hadn't been changed for days. Next to the crib, huddled in an army cot, underneath a few thin blankets, was a dark-haired little girl, maybe 2.5 years old. Her face was thin and pale. She was asleep. Through an open door, we could see into the next room where a woman was lying on a couch. There was an empty glass and a newly opened bottle of whiskey on the nightstand.
Should have let me come in first, officers. Would have had a chance to clean up a little. Kids mess up the house.
Harry, is that you, Harry?
That's my mother. Resting a little, I guess. This is the baby in the crib. His name's Jerry. Well, that's my little sister on the cot there. Her name's Annie.
Get your mother out here, will you, son? We want to talk to her.
Don't get mad at her, huh, will you? Ma's had a tough time lately. She tries to do her best.
What's the matter with the kids here, son? Have they been sick?
Yeah, the baby had a cold, but I got that medicine in from the drugstore. He seems to be okay. I'm not so sure about Annie, though. She had a bad cold. Doesn't seem to be getting over it.
You want to take a look, Ben?
Yeah.
Get your mother up, son.
Yeah. All right. Ma. Ma, get up, will you?
What is it? Who'd you bring home with you?
A couple of policemen. They won't talk to you.
What'd you bring them in for? Close the door there. I have to fix up a little.
My mother will be right out, officer.
All right, son.
And Joe?
Yeah.
We better get to a phone right away. It looks pretty bad.
What is it?
Baby needs a doctor. A little girl here. I hope she does, too.
What?
I'm not sure she's alive.
An ambulance was called immediately, and Harry Dunbar's 2-year-old sister Annie and his baby brother were both rushed to the general hospital. The mother, identified as Mrs. Florence Dunbar, was taken downtown and booked at the main jail on a drunk charge. 6:45 p.m. We took the boy, Harry Dunbar, over to Ben's house. We put in a call to the general hospital to check on his little sister Annie and his infant brother. They told us both the children were suffering from malnutrition. The little girl, Annie, had double pneumonia. Miraculously, the baby seemed to have been spared. He was sick, but his condition wasn't considered serious. After Ben's wife fed him dinner, 18-year-old Harry Dunbar sat down and told us the story. 3 months before, his father had deserted the family. His mother had made a pretense at supporting Harry and the 2 babies and then gave it up in favor of drinking. The whole burden of keeping the family alive was piled on the youngster's shoulders. Besides school, he had 3 odd jobs that he worked at to earn enough money to pay the rent, the gas and light bill, food, and general necessities. It wasn't enough, so he had to take to stealing. His mother wouldn't work, but at the same time, she wouldn't let the boy apply for charity. He slept at Ben's house that night, and the next morning at Juvenile Bureau, he gave us the rest of the story.
I guess it got too much for me. I don't know. I could sneak the food and medicine from the stores, all right, but couldn't seem to get enough money together. The rent bill and all that. Kids needed clothes, too.
Well, why wouldn't your mother let you apply for help, son? Some of the local charity.
Well, Ma'd never go for that, officer. She'd get mad when I talked about it. Said she had too much pride to take charity.
Did your mother know that you were stealing the food and medicine that you used to bring home?
I don't know. Guess so. Wouldn't be so mad at her, but every time I got some money together to pay bills, she wanted me to buy whiskey for her. She begged so much I couldn't say no.
We're having your mother brought over from the main jail, Harry. We'd like to find out if we can't locate your father. You want to check outside, Ben, see if they brought Miss Dunbar over yet?
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
How about the kids, Officer? Annie and the baby? How they doing?
Well, I checked the hospital, Harry. The doctor's going to call us as soon as he can.
I should have known better. Poor little kids. I could take care of myself, but they had to depend on her. She'd only stopped drinking.
You go right in, Mrs. Dunbar.
Harry, you all right, son? What have they been doing to you?
I'm all right, Mom. No, don't hang on me like that.
I was worried about you, Harry, you and the kids. I'm sorry they got sick. I didn't know. It's just bad luck, Harry. We got to stick together, you and me.
There's a chair here, Mom. Sit down.
Hey, Joe.
Yeah?
Hospital called. They took the message outside. Here.
Well, thank you.
The hospital, officer? About Annie and the baby?
Yeah, that's right, son. About your little sister, Annie.
What about her? What'd the doctor say?
Well, it's not good, Harry. The doctor called and said Annie had pneumonia.
Pneumonia.
She'll be all right, though, huh? They'll take care of her?
Well, it's not that way, son. I mean, the doctor said... Oh, look, you tell him what you do.
Well, what is it? What about Annie?
We got a right to know. She's my little girl.
Sergeant, you can tell me.
You want to sit down, Harry?
Yes, sir?
Annie died 10 minutes ago. The doctors tried. They couldn't help.
Annie dead?
That's right, son.
Mm-hmm. She's only a little kid. She's only 2 years old. Harry. Harry, son. Poor little Annie. Why did it have to be her, my own little girl? My own little Annie. Be good to me, son. I don't know how I can stand it. My own little girl, Annie.
Go outside, Ma. Go outside.
No, Harry. I need you. I need you more than ever, son. Be good to me. We have to stick together now. We gotta love one another.
All right, Miss Dunbar.
No. I need Harry. He's all I got. Aren't you, son? It's so hard sometimes. Everything's against us. Lord only knows I've tried. We've got to try to be happy, to stay together, love one another. Lord only knows.
Will you shut up, Ma?
Harry, don't blame me, son. We've got to try to be happy.
I blame you. Anybody blame you. You killed her. Poor little kid. You killed Annie.
Harry, don't say it. Don't say it.
I will say it, Ma. You did it. The whole terrible thing. Annie's dead. You did it. Don't you know what it means?
Don't, son. Don't hurt me.
All right, Harry. Now take it easy.
You know it, too, don't you? She did it. Her and her whiskey and her drinking and laying around, not even caring about the kids. I tried to tell you, Ma. It's the least you could have done. Take care of the kids. See they're all right. You had to drink. It wouldn't work. You had to lay around. Don't you understand? I couldn't do it all. I tried. I couldn't do it all. You had to go on drinking. And lay there and let watch Annie die.
Please, son, don't say that. We gotta love each other. I wouldn't hurt Annie. You know your mother never do that.
You're not my mother. You're not anybody's mother.
You don't know what you're saying. Harry, I'm your mother. Lord knows I've tried to be a good mother. You don't mean what you're saying.
Goodbye, Ma. I hope I never have to see you again.
Harry, please, don't go.
Ben, you better go get her. Yeah.
You wouldn't believe me, Sergeant. Lord knows I've tried. It's not easy, a husband deserting you the way Charlie did. 3 kids on your hands. What can I do?
Yes, ma'am.
Harry ought to understand. I tried. Lord knows it's the best anybody can do. Just try and hope for the best.
Yes, ma'am. I've only got one question.
Yes?
How hard did you try?
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On April 23rd, trial was held in Municipal Court, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
Now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, I have here a pack of Fatimas. Inside, of course, 20 king-size Fatima cigarettes. Now, Fatimas are the same length and circumference as other king-size cigarettes, and Fatima filters the smoke the same long distance. But only inside this golden yellow package do you get Fatima quality. That's right. Fatima gives you all the advantages of extra length plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has. Next time, buy Fatima.
18-year-old Harold Dunbar was filed on in juvenile court. After the hearing, the court directed that the 2 Dunbar children be placed in a foster home. Mrs. Dunbar was permanently deprived of the custody of her children.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Stay tuned for Counter Spy. Next, over NBC.
The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, brings you Dragnet.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to homicide detail. A well-known businessman in your city disappears suddenly from his home. He's seen driving away from the house in the company of two unidentified men. There's no explanation for it. Your job? Find him.
How does Fatima compare with other king-size cigarettes?
Fatimas are the same length and circumference, 85 millimeters long, 1 1/64 inches around. And Fatima filters the smoke exactly the same long distance as any other king-size cigarette.
Tell me then, how is Fatima different from other king-size cigarettes?
In Fatima, the difference is quality.
Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma.
Remember, Fatima has all the advantages of extra length plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
So, insist on the best. Smoke king-size Fatima, best of all long cigarettes. Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, October 10th. It was mild in Los Angeles. We were working the night watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Captain Lorman. My name's Friday. I was on the way back from the record bureau, and it was 10:38 p.m. when I got to room 42. Homicide. Hey, Ben? Romero?
Back here, Joe. Captain's office.
Oh, yeah. Captain?
Joe, sit down.
Thank you. I got your call. What's it all about?
You're closer to it than I am, Skipper. You want to brief him?
It's a man by the name of Tony Richmond. He disappeared from his house tonight, Joe. Looks like it might be foul play.
Tony Richmond. Name sounds a little familiar, doesn't it?
Runs a couple of garages around town. Promotes sports events on the side once in a while.
Sure. What's the story on him?
Well, here's the way we got it from Richmond's wife. He was at home tonight. The whole family was sitting in a back room looking at television. Richmond, his wife, 2 children, and his father-in-law.
Yeah.
About 9 o'clock, the doorbell rang. Richmond went to answer it. He hasn't been seen since.
Yeah?
That's right. Mrs. Richmond said she thought she heard a little loud talking at the front door and didn't pay any attention to it. When her husband didn't come back, she went to have a look. Front door was wide open. Her husband was gone.
No explanation for it at all.
One of the Richmonds' neighbors was sitting by a front window at the time, and Mrs. Sanford. She said she saw Mr. Richmond come down the front steps about that time, one man on either side of him.
Mm-hmm.
She got the idea Richmond didn't want to go with him.
Was there any description on the 2 men?
It's incomplete. The neighbor said she wasn't sure, but it looked to her like the 2 men pushed Richmond in a dark-colored sedan and drove off.
Not much description on the car either, Joe.
Well, where's that leave us?
Well, we're not positive there's anything wrong yet. There's a possibility it's nothing more than a misunderstanding.
How do you figure?
We got a couple of men out at the Richmond's house now. The wife told them that Mr. Richmond had a business appointment at 10 o'clock tonight. She didn't know where or with whom. Could have been with those 2 men.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't sound quite right, though, does it? I mean, walking out without even telling his wife.
No. Something else to consider. The wife said that when Richmond went to answer the front door, he was in his shirt sleeves.
Yeah.
When the neighbors saw him come down the stairs with the 2 men, she said he had his coat on. If those 2 guys were going to grab him off, they wouldn't wait for him to get his coat.
Yeah. How's it stand now?
We got out a broadcast on a description of the two men in the car. Not an awful lot to go on, no license number.
Anybody in particular who might have had it in for Richmond? Is there anything like that?
No, not that we know of so far. He dressed pretty well, obviously had money, wore quite a bit of jewelry.
Well, what have you got lined up for us, Skipper?
I've got Barrett and Tommy Bryan standing by at the Richmond's house now, still checking around with Richmond's friends, some of his business associates. Nothing so far. Excuse me.
Sure.
Homicide, Lorman. Yeah, Tom. How's that? When? Yeah, right away. You know what to do. Keep in touch. Right. Well, that takes it out of the guessing stage. That was Bryan out at the Richmond house. Mrs. Richmond just got a phone call a few minutes ago.
Yeah?
Man's voice. He told her they were holding her husband.
Well, what's her pitch?
If she wants him back alive, it'll cost $20,000.
As in all cases involving abduction to extort ransom, the investigating police officer is faced immediately with a dozen problems. But first and foremost is the safe return of the victim. When that's accomplished and the danger of death or bodily harm to the victim is removed, the officers then have the freedom to openly hunt down the abductors. But until the time the victim is safely returned, apprehending the criminal suspects remains a secondary consideration. 10:45 p.m. Together with Captain Lorman, Ben and I left the office and drove out to the Richmond's home out in North Hollywood, the scene of the abduction. We parked our car several blocks away and entered the house from a back street. It was a large, sprawling ranch-style home, richly landscaped. We went inside and checked with the two men from homicide on duty, Barrett and Bryan. They told us that there'd been no more phone calls, anonymous or otherwise. They also told us that so far the victim's wife, Adele Richmond, had been hostile and uncooperative. The abductors had warned her on the telephone about calling in the police. Now she was all for paying the $20,000 ransom and handling the case without the police. While Ben, Tommy Bryan, and Barrett rechecked the neighborhood for other possible witnesses to the abduction, Captain Lorman and I went inside and met the victim's wife and the victim's father-in-law, Fred Wellman. The wife was an attractive brunette in her early 30s.
Can't you understand? I just don't want the policemen here. They can be watching the house right now. They'll kill Tony if they know you're here.
Now, honey, there's no use getting upset like this. It isn't going to do any good.
Your father's right, ma'am. I know it's hard on you, but getting all worked up isn't going to help much.
Well, I wish I'd never called you in the first place. I can handle this. I'll pay them the money. I'll pay them anything as long as they bring my husband back safe.
Yes, ma'am, that's possible. But what makes you think you can trust those men? How do you know you'll get your husband back after you pay the $20,000?
That's what they told me. I talked to them on the phone. That's what they promised me.
Well, they've promised other people, too, ma'am. You give them $20,000, they'll want $40,000. Give them just one opening, they're going to run it into the ground. They'll take everything they can get, and you still won't have your husband back.
Well, there's no other way. I have to take the chance. I have to.
There is another way, Miss Richmond. That's why we're here.
What if it gets in the papers, publicity? Those men are bound to hear about it.
There won't be a line in the newspapers, I promise you that. As far as we're concerned, the only men who'll know about it will be the officers working the case.
We'll do everything we can, ma'am, but we're going to have your cooperation.
I don't know. If anything happens to Tony... I've got to sit down. I can't even think. I'm so worried.
That's it, honey. Here, you sit here. I'll get you some coffee. Good hot cup of coffee.
Would you see how the children are, Dad? See if they're covered.
Yeah, sure, honey. You just rest. You care for some coffee, officers?
No, sir.
No, thank you.
All right.
Now, about that phone call that you got, Miss Richmond.
They told me $20,000. If they get it, they'll let Tony go.
What else did they tell you?
That's all. They had Tony, and that if I wanted to see him again alive, we'd have to pay $20,000.
Well, what about the arrangements for delivering the money? Did you discuss that at all?
No, all he said was get $20,000 in small bills. He said that, too. He said he'd contact me later about delivering the money. Officer, I can't get that much money together tonight.
I don't think you'll have to, ma'am. I'm pretty sure the abductors know that, too.
Now, how about the voice on the phone, Miss Richmond? Is there any chance that you might have recognized it?
No, I haven't any idea who it was.
Well, did he give you any hint at all as to about how much time that you'd be allowed to get the money together?
Well, he said he'd call later on. I got the idea he meant later on tonight. He told me he'd have more instructions for me then.
I'd like to ask you once more, Mrs. Richmond, can you think of anyone who might try something like this on your husband? Maybe somebody who needed money, who carried a grudge against Mr. Richmond?
No one at all. Tony always got along very well in business. He works hard. He works awfully hard. I'm sorry, officer. I can't help thinking the whole thing would be better all around if I just pay the money and make them let my husband go.
No, that's just the point, ma'am, like we said. How do you know they're going to let him go? If they can make $20,000 overnight, it's a good bet they're not going to let them go that easy. You can't make those kind of deals with them. They'll believe us.
Tone, what can I do, if anything?
I brought your coffee, Del. Good hot coffee. I looked in on the children. They were covered. And now you try some of this coffee now.
Thank you, Dad. Well, what are we going to do, officers? We can't just sit here and wait.
There's a few things I'd like to brief you on to start with.
Yes?
There'll be a couple of our men stationed here at all times. Another thing, do you have more than one telephone in the house?
Yes, sir, we do. There's one here in the den, one in the kitchen. Then we have a plug-in extension for the living room.
Fine. The next time the phone rings, you answer it, Mrs. Richmond. One of us will be listening in on the extension.
The one in the kitchen, that'd be closest.
All right. Now, if it's one of your husband's abductors calling, you tell them it's going to take you time to raise the money. Tell them at least 2 days.
Well, suppose they insist. But they say they want it sooner. They could kill my husband tonight.
Well, they could, ma'am, but I don't think they will. It's a pretty good bet that they planned on some waiting. Most people don't keep $20,000 around the house, and they know as well as you do that the banks don't open until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Something else, Mrs. Richmond. Make it clear to them that you won't have any direct hand in the transaction, paying the ransom. Tell them you're too sick, you're too upset, and that your brother will take care of everything.
You mean one of your officers?
Yes, ma'am. Sergeant Friday here can take care of that, eh?
Will they believe me? Don't you think they'll get suspicious?
Well, maybe, but you have to remember, ma'am, suspicious or not, their only interest is in getting the money and then getting away. Our first problem is to get your husband home safe. When we've got that done, we can worry about the abductors.
I see. All right, officer, I'll do all I can to help.
Fine, Mrs. Richmond. I think you'll find it's the best way. Joe, you and Romero will be on duty here for the night.
Right.
You'll monitor all the incoming calls. We'll try and get a tracer on him if you can keep the guy talking on the line long enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make arrangements for another phone line in here and the use of the neighbor's phone next door.
Okay, fine. Do you know if the people next door are home now, sir?
Yes, sir, I think they are. Name's Thompson. Almost positive they're home.
Okay, fine.
All right, Mrs. Richmond, you want to take that? Don't pick it up till I tell you. Joe, over here at this extension.
Right.
Both of you pick up your receivers at the same time. You ready, Joe?
Right.
Mrs. Richmond? Now.
Hello?
Is this Mrs. Richmond?
Yes, this is she.
This call's about your husband, Mrs. Richmond. Here's your instructions about the money. If you want your husband back alive, follow him.
I want to tell you something. I can't handle this alone.
Well, don't try
my
stalling, lady. Just listen. Here are the instructions. I'm only going to say them once. Get 20,000 in small bills by tomorrow. 5s, 10s, and 20s. Bring the cops in on this, and we'll kill your husband tonight. Now, remember it. We'll get the rest of the instructions tomorrow.
Please listen. Can my brother help? Hello?
Fast one. Wouldn't even give her a chance to talk.
What did you say, Sergeant? What was it?
Well, let's go back in there. Huh?
Yeah.
Did you hear him, officer? He wouldn't let me talk. Just like the last time, I couldn't even tell him.
Yes, ma'am, we heard. Now, why don't you sit down right here?
Said not to call the police. Said they'd kill him tonight. They'd kill Tony.
Grab her, I got her.
Poor Dell.
All right, you want to clear the sofa off?
Yes, sir. Poor Dell is too much for her.
All right.
There we go.
Yeah. I think you ought to call your family doctor, sir. Sedative might help her quite a bit. Get her a little rest anyway.
I already did, Sergeant. I could see this coming. I'll get a blanket.
Well, what do you think?
I only want 20,000 by tomorrow. 5s, 10s, 20s. Said more instructions coming. Threatened to kill Richmond if we moved in.
How'd he sound?
Like he meant it. 12:35 a.m. Captain Lorman and I remained by the phone. The family doctor arrived, gave Mrs. Richmond a sedative, and she lay down for a rest in her room. Barrett, Tom, Bryan, and Ben came back to the house just before 1 a.m. They had a few more details on the description of the car used by the abductors, which they'd gotten from residents in the neighborhood. The information was relayed to communications, and a supplementary broadcast and an APB were gotten out. Ben and I stood watch at the house for the rest of the night, but there were no more calls. In the early morning, stakeouts were set up at the victim's place of business and also at the banks where he maintained his accounts and safety deposit boxes. That night, Ben and I still were at the Richmond place, standing by at the phone. There had been no contact from the abductors during the day. We waited. Midnight. 3 a.m. 6 a.m. No word. Another day passed. And then another. Still no contact. No trace of Mr. Richmond or his abductors. Saturday, October 13th, hope for the victim began to fade. Ben and I stayed on at the Richmond house.
Say, could I get you officers something to eat, maybe? A nice piece of cold beef in the icebox. Could make you a sandwich.
No, thank you.
Just the same.
How's Mrs. Richmond tonight, sir? Is she feeling any better?
My daughter, no. No better. She took a couple of pills the doctor gave her, trying to get a few winks of sleep, poor girl.
Well, there's no use you sitting up with us, sir, if you'd like to get a little sleep yourself.
No, I'd just as soon sit up. Couldn't sleep anyway. Hey, I don't suppose either of you would care for a little nip. Huh?
No, thanks. No, thanks.
Guess you wouldn't mind if I had one myself. Seems lately that's the only thing that relaxes me.
You can go right ahead.
When you get to be my age, a little bit helps now and then. Oh, there's some new magazines on the table there. Might help to pass the time for you.
Thank you, sir.
3 days now. Not even a word about Tony. What do you really think, officers?
Well, it's pretty hard to tell, Mr. Wellman. We're doing everything possible to find your son-in-law. There's not much to go on so far.
Funny thing about Tony. Young fella, ambitious. Look what happens.
Yes, sir.
Wouldn't mind if I turn on the radio here, would you? I'll keep it low.
No, sir. Go right ahead.
Sir.
Yeah, it's a funny thing about Tony. The day he married my daughter, I knew he was going to make it. Right fella, Tony. Sure been good to me.
That's so?
Sure thing. Took me in right after the wife died. I was out of work at the time. Been with him ever since. Attend the garden, kind of clean up things. Tony's always been real good to me. No in-law trouble, nothing like that.
Mm-hmm.
And look what happens. Young fella starts with almost nothing. Builds a good business, family, nice home. Just look what happens.
Well, there's no need to give up yet, sir. There's a good chance he's still all right.
I don't know. I guess I just got a feeling about it.
How do you mean?
About Tony. He's a fine young man. Things like this, they always happen to the fine young man. You take me, for instance. I wouldn't make money the way Tony does. Build a big business the way he has. I guess that's why I'd never be in the trouble he's in.
I don't think I follow you.
Guess I never wanted it, Sergeant. Couldn't get interested in making money. You break your back like Tony does. You work, you get a big bank account.
Yeah.
Get the home, the big car, and the swimming pool. You work for it like Tony did. You work hard. You get your big checkbook and everything you want. Just look what happens. Poor Tony works night and day for the money. Right now, he's no better off than the guy who's only worth a dime. They don't hold beggars for ransom, do they?
Excuse me, sir. I wonder if you have an extra book of matches around. I believe I'm out.
Oh, sure thing, Sergeant. I got some in the kitchen. Sure you wouldn't care for a little nip?
No, sir, no thanks.
Think I might. A little bit helps now and then.
Ben?
Yeah. Wonder what he means by every now and then.
You want to grab the extension out in the kitchen?
Right.
What'll I say, huh?
Uh-huh.
Now. Hello?
Is this Sunset 18046?
Yeah, that's right.
Was Mrs. Richmond there?
No, not right now. This is her brother talking. Is there any message?
I want to talk to Mrs. Richmond.
Well, she's not here. You got a message for her?
Would you say this is?
Well, this is her brother talking. If you'd like to leave a message for Mrs. Richmond, I'll see.
This isn't her brother talking. I know his voice. Who is this?
Well, maybe you can tell me who you are.
This is Tony Richmond. Where's my wife?
Richmond, where are you?
Who is this?
Where are you?
I got away from way out in the valley, a dairy range near Sepulveda. Are you a cop?
Where can we find you?
About a mile from Telegraph Avenue in Sepulveda. A road in the middle of a dairy farm. If you're cops, you drive out with the red light on and honk the horn.
How soon can we meet you?
A half hour. You get out of your car and stand right in front of the headlights. I'll be watching you. I want to get a good look at you.
All right, half an hour.
Something else. I got hold of a gun.
Yeah?
And if you're not cops, I'll know what to do.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic cases from official police files. Now, let's look at our Fatima files.
Listed under H. Hardwick. Cedric Hardwick, distinguished actor. He says,
I find Fatima a very pleasing cigarette. It has a distinctly better flavor.
Listed under M. Morley. Maggie Morley, television actress. She says,
I like a long cigarette, and I like it extra mild. That's why it's Fatima for me.
friends, our files show Fatima's sales are going up. Up every day.
The reason for Fatima's ever-increasing popularity can be summed up in 2 words. Fatima quality.
Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma.
If you smoke a king-size cigarette, remember this.
Fatima has all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has. In Fatima, the difference is quality.
So insist on the best. Insist on king-size Fatima.
Next time, buy Fatima in the distinctive golden yellow package.
1:30 a.m. After we got the call from the man who identified himself as the victim of the abduction, Tony Richmond, we put in a call for Captain Lorman. We told him about the phone call from the victim, his request for us to pick him up, and also about the conditions he stipulated that we follow. The captain ordered 3 cruiser cars and a car to pick up Ben and me and take us to the location specified in the phone conversation. 2 a.m. With the red light turned on, we pulled up at the approximate location indicated. It was a lonely spot on a lonely road, a little more than a mile off the nearest highway. We waited. We didn't know what to expect. It could be that the phone call, supposedly from Tony Richmond, had actually been made by one of the abductors. It could be that it was nothing more than a diversionary action intended to distract our attention while the abductors carried out their plans to obtain the ransom money from the victim's wife and make good their escape. We kept waiting. Ben sounded the horn at frequent intervals. Captain Lorman and myself stood up in front of the car in the glare of the headlights. 10 minutes went by. 15 minutes. Finally, a half a dozen yards down the road, we spotted a man climbing up the side of the drainage ditch and onto the road. He walked slowly toward us into the glare of the headlights. In his right hand, he held a gun.
You can put the gun down, mister.
You're the police? Show me.
Here's our car. Here's our identification.
Here you are. His badge, ID card.
Oh, thank God. Thank God, thank God.
The first thing we did was to notify the victim's wife and family that he'd been found and that he was unharmed. Then we called the office and told them what had happened. We offered to drive Richmond to his home immediately, but he told us that he was all right and insisted that he show us where the abductors had held him captive. We got in the car and started driving north along a dirt road that led off Sepulveda. On the way, Richmond briefed us on what had happened. He said that he'd been taken at gunpoint at the front door of his home 4 nights before, forced into a car by 2 men that he'd failed to recognize, and then driven to an abandoned shack in a deserted area in the San Fernando Valley. The 2 men had tied him hand and foot, partially stripped him, gagged him, and placed him under a floor of the shack and left him there. One of the men returned each day to give him something to eat. That night, Richmond told us that his captor failed to retie his hands securely. When the man left, Richmond succeeded in freeing himself from the ropes, made his way to a phone, and called his house. Outside of shock and exposure, he seemed to be all right. After pointing out the shack he'd been held captive in, and after we'd checked through it, Richmond was taken home in one of the cruiser cars. Ben and I remained on stakeout at the shack.
Pretty dark. Can you see the shack all right from here?
Just about, yeah. Keep an eye peeled on the road, huh?
Yeah. No smoke?
No, thanks. We waited. Nothing happened. 3 a.m. 3:30. No sign of the suspects. 4:30. 5 a.m. 5:12 a.m. Ben spotted the headlights of a car at least a mile down the road. We watched them come toward us. When it got close enough, we saw it was a dark-colored late-model sedan. It fitted the description of the abductor's car perfectly. It swung off the dirt road and pulled to a stop near the shack. 1 man got out.
All right,
let's go. All right, Mr. Police Officers, hold it right there.
Down, Joe.
See him, Ben?
Yeah, I ducked behind his car.
All right, throw out your gun. I'll give it back.
You got some good cover, Joe.
Let's go. Come on, move in. Easy.
All right. Here's my gun.
Out from behind the car. Hands behind your head.
Cover me, Joe. I'll shake him down.
Right. All right, hold it right there.
Okay, Joe. He's clean. All right, hands behind you.
Sure like to play it safe, don't you? Handcuffs.
They work pretty good, mister. Much better than rope.
We called the office. A relief team came out to replace us on stakeout, and we took the suspect downtown to the interrogation room. He was checked through R&I and identified as Gerald Adams, a one-time loser. Together with Barrett and Bryan, we questioned the suspect. For 3 hours, he refused to admit that he had any part in the abduction of Tony Richmond. We gave up for the time being, took him to the main jail where he was booked on suspicion of kidnapping. A little after 11 a.m., Gerald Adams' partner showed up out at the shack in the valley. He was taken into custody. He was brought downtown, confronted with the evidence against him, and he gave us a full statement admitting his guilt. Late that afternoon, we went back to the main jail, signed out Adams for investigation, and brought him back to the interrogation room.
Have a seat, Adams.
Yeah. Okay, what is it this time?
Same as before, Adams. What do you say? You going to tell us about it?
I told you my story this morning, mister. You got it all.
Thought maybe you'd like to know. We picked up your partner. He gave us a signed statement.
Here's a copy of it. Have a look. Down in black and white. Your partner says you were in it with him all the way.
What'd you say, Adam?
Doesn't mean anything to me. You probably forced it out of him.
Well, that's not what he says. He blames the whole thing on you. Says you set up the deal, you gave the orders, you made the phone calls for the ransom money. Says that's the way he's going to tell it in court.
He's going to need a lot of proof.
He gave it to us. He showed us your apartment, a couple of ransom notes you'd written, showed us the typewriter you wrote him on, showed us the clothes you wore the night you grabbed Mr. Richmond.
He's a liar.
Not according to our crime lab, he's not. They checked over the clothes, found particles of dirt and pollen in the trouser cuffs. They match up with samples we took from that field out by the shack.
Well, it ain't true. None of it's true. This guy's a liar.
Well, there's your statement, Adam. It's all there. If you got any corrections in the story, now's the time to make them.
Adam?
There's only one thing I want to know.
Yeah?
How did it happen? How'd you get a line on us?
Richmond got away from the shack. We staked out on it until you came along.
Doesn't figure. He couldn't have gotten away. I had it all worked out.
Your partner didn't.
I showed him just what to do, how to handle the thing. I showed him where to hide Richmond. Couldn't have goofed up. I showed him the whole routine.
Well, there's one thing you didn't show him.
Yeah?
How to tie a knot.
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On December 18th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 87, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. I'd like to speak for a few seconds to our good friends, the cigarette dealers all over the country. Our latest reports show national Fatima sales are still going up. Every day of the week, more and more smokers are enjoying king-size Fatima. Now, as a result, every so often we receive letters from listeners telling us that their dealer is out of Fatimas. So I'd like to suggest this. You can do yourself and your customers a big favor by making sure you always have enough Fatimas to meet the ever-increasing demand. Put them out on the counter and watch how your customers go for Fatima quality. Fatima. Best of all long cigarettes. Thank you.
Gerald Adams and his accomplice in the abduction of Tony Richmond were tried and convicted in Superior Court of kidnapping. The state penal code stipulates that kidnapping for the purpose of extorting money is punishable either by death or by imprisonment in the state penitentiary from 25 years to life. Both Adams and his partner are now serving life terms in the state penitentiary, Folsom, California.
Ladies and gentlemen, one of the first contributions to the special $5 million Red Cross flood relief appeal was $2.07 in pennies and nickels from two 9-year-old playmates in Kansas City, Missouri. Stepping up to the reception desk in the Kansas City Red Cross chapter, the pair proudly offered their earnings gained from touring neighborhood streets, reciting, and singing nursery rhymes. The money the Red Cross provides for rebuilding a house or refurnishing it, or for helping a family find the means to help itself, will be given outright, not lent. These were the words of President Truman in asking the American public to contribute at least $5 million to the Red Cross to aid the disaster-stricken people of Kansas, Missouri, Oklahoma, and Illinois. Won't you help through your local Red Cross chapter?
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima Cigarettes, best of all long cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles. Stay tuned for Counter Spy next over NBC.
Ladies and gentlemen, the documented story you will hear during the next 30 minutes is not a subject commonly discussed. It is a criminal problem that is not yet nationwide, but it's a problem which is growing rapidly. We present it now so that you may recognize it for what it is if and when it invades your city. The story you are about to hear is true. Only the names have been changed to protect the innocent.
Fatima, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to bunco detail. You begin to receive reports of a vicious new racket growing in your city, the television repair racket. The repairmen lie, overcharge, bill you for work not done, for parts not needed, for parts they don't install. Your job? Stop them.
How does Fatima compare with other king-size cigarettes?
Fatimas are the same length and circumference, 85 millimeters long, 1 1/64 inches around. And Fatima filters the smoke exactly the same long distance as any other king-size cigarette.
Tell me then, how is Fatima different from other king-size cigarettes?
In Fatima, the difference is quality.
Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma.
Remember, Fatima has all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
So insist on the best. Smoke king-size Fatima. Best of all king-size cigarettes. Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Monday, January 19th. It was overcast in Los Angeles. We were working the day watch out of bunco detail. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Captain McCauley. My name's Friday. It was 9:15 a.m. when we got to the third floor of the Los Angeles Daily News, the assistant city editor's office.
Hi, Friday. Come on in. Sit down.
Morning, Jack. I'd like you to meet my partner, Ben Romero. Ben, this is Jack Kinnett, staff writer for the Daily News.
All right, Kinnett. Glad to know you, Ben. Sit down, fellas.
Thanks. We just left the skipper over at the city hall.
Did the captain brief you on this thing?
Yeah, he gave us a partial fill-in. We've been working on it from our end about 2 weeks now.
Well, Paul Price, he's our radio TV editor. Paul and I had a long session with Captain McCauley yesterday, and I guess now we're all ready to move on this thing, huh?
Well, we'll do everything we can. Would you like to fill Ben in on what you told me yesterday on the phone?
Yeah. Well, Price was the one who began getting the first complaints here at the paper. A tremendous number of his readers wrote in complaints about being victimized by crooked television repairmen.
About being charged too much for repair?
Partly, yeah. Some of the people even sent in receipts with their letters. Said they felt the guys who fixed their sets were dreaming up unnecessary repairs, charging them for work not done. Some of them said they knew they were billed for parts not even replaced or installed in their sets.
Ben, Jack told me yesterday about a letter he got from some man who said he felt he'd been overcharged and he just started to bellyache about it.
Yeah, a fellow by the name of Vincent. Said he just put up an old-fashioned squawk about it, and the repairman brought the price down at least 1/3.
That doesn't sound very good, does it?
We kind of figured operators like that must have too many repair sets on hand that their customers can't afford to bail out. That's why they cut.
Sounds like a clear case of a two-bit jip, doesn't it?
Well, something's got to be done about it.
We're ready to give it big play in our paper, expose the fraud for what it really is. Captain McCauley says Chief Parker's okayed our plan, and we can count on full police cooperation.
That's the way we got it, Jack. We were told to work with you people till we broke this thing.
Fine. We dug up a little ammunition to start with, I think. Went around and interviewed about 15 different television repairmen in various neighborhoods, and about 3 out of 5 gave me the same pitch.
Well, did they know you were with the newspaper?
No, I told them I was a factory representative for a new kind of rosin core solder company, and I was taking orders.
Yeah.
Naturally, I dropped in the different stores, shot the breeze with them, and they didn't seem to get wise. A couple of them even placed orders for the solder.
Well, what'd you find out?
Well, I just wanted to try and get the general attitude of some of these jip artists, and I really got an earful. One of the last places I hit was a tiny little hole in the wall out near Canoga Park.
Uh-huh.
As I say, about 2 out of 5 are honest, hard-working repairmen, and this fellow was one of them.
Well, what are you getting at, Jack?
For a while, this fellow worked for a guy that employed about 5 men in his shop.
Yeah.
Finally quit him because he didn't like the way this big operator did business. Fellas in the next office, I want you to hear it from him just as I got it. Excuse me.
Yeah, okay.
Hank, will you come in, please?
Sure, Mr. Matt.
This is Hank Coulter, Sergeant Friday, Sergeant Ben Romero, Police Department.
Hi.
Hank, I wonder if you'd tell these officers a little of what you told me about Kilgore TV specialist.
All right.
Now, suppose I'm a customer and I come into Kilgore's. I don't like the size of my repair bill. What were you instructed to say?
Well, we generally tried to talk him out of any complaint.
Suppose I complained about all the multiple charges. I wanted an explanation of the work you did. What then?
We just tell you that it wouldn't do any good to explain. You wouldn't understand all the technical stuff anyway.
Mm-hmm. Tell us Kilgore's attitude with the customer.
You mean about the loose wire stuff?
Yeah, please.
Well, Kilgore used to tell us that if we only charged 50 cents for fixing a loose wire, the customer wouldn't believe we really fixed his set, so we used to charge quite a lot more.
Well, how much more, for example?
For a nickel's worth of wire, we usually charge $4.75.
Pretty fair profit.
Yeah, it's a real rob.
What else can you tell us, eh?
Well, we never let a customer watch any of the TV repair jobs.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if a customer calls and says he thinks the tube's blown out and it'll only be a simple replacement job in his home, and we'd tell him the parts are getting hard to get, and we'd have to take his set into the shop and charge him a higher rate because we had to pay black market prices for the tube.
Was there any truth in that? I mean, about the tubes being hard to get?
Not much. Some of them are getting a little hard to get, but we never paid any black market prices at Kilgore's. We just slugged the customer, that's all.
Tell them about how you used to swap parts on a new set, Hank.
Well, we'd lots of times pirate a new tube for one not so good. One not so good we'd put in a set with a bad tube.
Yeah.
Then the bad tube we'd exchange at the factory under a 1-year guarantee.
Yeah, they don't miss an angle, do they?
Well, that's it. We've heard it from a man who couldn't stomach such practice and quit, went into business, a little bit of a shop. Isn't doing too well, are you, Hank?
No, but I think I can build up the business. I don't make quite as much profit as Kilgore's, but I don't chisel my customers either.
Thanks a lot, Hank. I wonder if you'd wait in the next office for me?
Sure. Hope I'd help a little bit to crack down on some of these guys.
Well, we think you have, Hank. Thanks a lot.
Nice to meet you.
Right. See you later.
See you later.
Seems like a nice fellow.
There he is. I've checked on him, and I've talked with some of his customers since I met him. He's honest.
It's a pretty vicious racket, isn't it?
Yeah. It ought to be stopped now. Television's a wonderful medium of entertainment. A lot of the country doesn't have it yet, but when the cable goes through and it finally opens up, the people should know about the swindlers and crooks who try to gyp them.
Yeah, that's right.
It's the same way when radio first came in. Always seems like when anything new comes along, anything a little complicated, maybe a little too involved for the average guy, a few smart punks victimize him. Rob the consumer blind.
Well, naturally, we got to have some positive evidence before we can file a complaint with the city attorney on this thing.
Yeah, you fellas, any ideas where to start?
Well, the best way to crack down on these crooked operators is to catch them red-handed with evidence that'll hold up in court.
Yeah.
We think maybe we've got an idea.
Well, we were talking to Dick Saunders over in our sound lab, and he says that he can bungle a new TV set, and we can mark it and photograph it before it goes out to be repaired.
And when it's returned or after it's fixed, we'll have what we need to go to court on, huh?
Yeah, that's it.
We can operate right out of one of our own homes.
And all we have to do is hope the repairman overcharges us or tries to gyp us.
Yeah, that's right.
Let's hope it works.
Well, from what we've heard, it's got to. 10 a.m. The staff writer, Jack Kinnett, Ben, and I drove back downtown. On the way, it was decided that we'd use Kinnett's home as the place from which to operate. It was centrally located and in an average neighborhood. When we got back to our office, we contacted one of the local television dealers and asked for the loan of one of their sets. They recommended K. Halbert because the chassis is easily accessible and any trouble could be located quickly because parts are visible. A 16-inch K. Halbert console model was sent to our sound lab. 10:18 a.m., we met with Dick Saunders, our police lab technician.
Here's the set. 16-inch console model, serial number C2817901.
What have you done to it, Dick?
Well, first off, I tested the set and it performed perfectly. It's a good set. Brings in a fine picture, see? Yeah, test pattern's fine, huh?
Yeah, it's good.
Tested all the tubes, all okay.
How are you marking the set?
Yeah, I'll show you. Get a tube out of here. Now, if you look closely here at the base of the socket, see it?
What's that?
This is it, isn't it, Dick? Little tiny dot of green paint?
Yeah, that's right, Ben. Mm-hmm. I'm marking every part of the set with this tiny green dot.
Looks good. If I didn't spot it, I doubt anyone else would, especially if they didn't know about it.
Yeah, that's what we're hoping.
In addition to this type marking, we've taken all serial numbers off the tubes and various parts. Anything that carried any form of coding, we took down.
Mm-hmm.
All major components have been marked. Transformers, coils, condensers, tuning units, so on.
Did you get any pictures of it?
Yeah, we did.
Took photographs of the set in and out of the cabinet. Took them from 4 different angles just to be sure we were well covered.
Well, how did you bungle it?
Well, here's what I did. To put the set out of commission, I burned out the filament of the 5U4G low-voltage rectifier tube.
What's the cost of that particular tube, Saunders?
Well, this tube ordinarily retails for $1.65.
Mm-hmm. Well, what does that do to the set? I mean, burning out the tube.
By burning out that filament, we cause the sound and picture circuits to be completely inoperative.
It won't work at all until that particular tube is replaced by a good one, isn't it?
That's right, Joe.
Well, how big a job would it be to trace the trouble?
Well, it could easily be detected by casual observation or by noting that the tube normally very hot is cold.
How much time would you say it'd require to make a repair like this?
Oh, I'd estimate not over half hour would be required to place this set in operating order.
Half hour.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks a lot, Dick. You going to take care of getting the set out to Canette's home right away?
Yeah, we have his address right here. We'll get it right out.
All right, fine.
If you can, try to get whoever repairs this set to give you an itemized bill of all work done and parts installed.
Right.
In case you call more than one outfit today, here's an extra bad 5U4G tube.
Thank you, Dick.
Anything you'd like to know?
No, I think that about covers it for me. Jack?
One more thing. I was just wondering, if somebody spots the trouble right away and replaces the tube, what do you think they ought to charge, Dick? Labor and all.
I checked through RTA on that this morning. They said to make a house call and replace the defective tube should not exceed $4.50.
Okay, thanks.
That does it for now, huh?
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, you're all set then. Think we'll get what you're after?
Well, we should. The odds are all on our side. 10:30 a.m., Monday, January 19th. We left the sound lab on West 1st Street and walked back to Bunko Division. We met with Captain McCauley and filled him in. We gave him the newspaper man Jack Canette's address and told him he could reach us there. The console model television set was delivered to Canette's home and properly installed. When we arrived at his home, we started going through the yellow classified section of the phone directory. We made a list of several TV service stores just picked at random. We chose a wide variety. We picked stores that were listed with large boxed-in ads, stores that carried no ads, just a listing. Ben called 2 places and staggered the calls so that the repairman would arrive about 1 hour apart. It was 11:30 a.m. when the first man made his service call, Bart's TV experts on Hollywood Boulevard. It took him 45 minutes. It was 12:15 when he left Jack Canette's home.
Must have been one of the 2 out of 5, huh?
Yeah, he seems okay.
I wonder if I could see that bill, huh?
Oh, here you go, Joe.
Thanks. Yeah, it looks okay. Replace 5U4G tube, $1.65. Service charge, $2.50. Total charges, $4.15.
That kind of bears out Canette's thinking, doesn't it? Remember when we asked him how many men worked in his shop and he said he's alone?
Yeah.
I think you'll find that's a pretty good barometer. All the servicemen working alone aren't like this guy, but the bigger percentage of the honest ones are.
When's the next one due to arrive, Ben?
Any minute now. Called a place by the name of Cheney's Video Repairs. They're over on Beverly Boulevard.
Mm-hmm.
Had a big ad. Looks like a pretty big outfit.
Oh, here's that other defective tube that Dick gave us.
Yeah, better get it in the set.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. Here we are. 5U4G.
Okay, here you go.
Thanks, Jill. Here's a new one the guy put in.
Got it.
Okay. Let's get this back on again.
Okay?
Yeah, fine. Better turn it on to make sure it's not working.
I got it.
How about the tube, Ben? Can you see? Is it lighting up?
No, not yet. I'll push the set back against the wall.
We better leave it on for a while, Jack, just to make sure. Huh?
Yeah.
There we are. I gave you the other tube?
Yeah, I got it right here in my pocket.
Right.
I'd like to try something if you fellas think it'll be okay.
What's that, Jack?
I got a good little camera, like a 3F, candid.
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe if I turn all the 3-way lamps up to full, use a AAA fast film that's in the camera now, maybe we can grab some shots of the guy while he works. What do you think?
Well, if you're careful, don't let him get wise. Maybe you ought to shoot some of all of us just so he doesn't think anything about it. Huh?
Yeah, that's what I figured. I'll just sit down in that chair over there by the set, make him think I'm just testing or something.
Mm-hmm.
I think I can bring it off without arousing any suspicion.
Okay.
If I get anything, the guy's out of line, we'll run the shots in the Daily News.
What do you figure on doing, Jack? You going to run a series on the TV repair racket?
Yeah, that's the plan. Lee Payne, he's our executive editor. He thinks it's high time somebody exposed the swindle in the paper.
Mm-hmm. That'll be the next service, man. I'll let him in.
Right. Better turn off the set. Huh?
Yeah.
Television repair?
That's right.
On from Cheney's and Beverly Boulevard.
Oh, yeah. Now, come on in.
Thanks. Oh, what seems to be the trouble?
We don't know. The set's right over here.
Oh, thanks. Hey, Halbert, huh? 16-inch, nice set. Oh, what seems to be wrong?
Darn if I know, son. Nothing seems to work.
Well, how do you mean?
No picture at all.
How about sound?
Nothing.
Uh-huh. I'll be all right to pull the set away from the wall?
Sure, go right ahead. Can you give you a hand?
Oh, no, it's all right. I can handle it. Well, I'll make some tools out. How long you had this set?
Oh, about 2-3 months.
Mm-hmm. Dark in here. I wonder if we could have a little more light?
Sure, let me get these lamps up for you.
Oh, thanks.
How's that?
Oh, fine, thanks. Say, that's a nice little camera you got there. What kind is it?
A Leica 3F 1.5 lens.
Uh-huh.
Been experimenting with some new indoor film. You mind being a guinea pig?
No, it's all right with me. Shane wastes good film on me, though.
Think you're going to get anything in this light, Jack?
Maybe. Worth a try, anyway.
I don't know about this set.
What do you mean?
Well, it looks bad. Hard to tell without getting it down to the shop. Looks to me like your blocking transformer's gone.
And what's that mean?
Well, I'll have to take the set in.
Can't fix it here, huh?
No, I'm afraid not. You see, parts are getting a little hard to get these days. The set manufacturers are having a tough time getting quality parts, and sometimes we have to spend several hours just tracing the trouble.
Well, I guess that knocks out the ball game tonight, huh, fellas?
Sorry. Take a couple of days at least. Want to really check it over.
Sure it's not a tube. We kind of thought just a tube blew out.
No, that's what most people think every time their set goes out. It's definitely not a tube. Oh, there might be some bad tubes, but your trouble's a great deal more than that, I think.
Have you got any idea what it's going to run us?
Well, it's hard to say right offhand.
$4 or $5?
No, it's going to run more than that. I'll take the set in with me now, and I'll get it back to you as soon as possible.
You going to take the whole set?
No, I'll just pull the chassis out of the cabinet, leave the cabinet here. Oh, say, by the way.
Yeah?
If everything turns out, I'd sure like to see those pictures.
Yeah, if everything turns out, you will.
You are listening to Dragnet, authentic cases from official police files. Now, let's look at our Fatima files.
Listed under B, Bella. James Warner Bella, distinguished author. He says,
a man who smokes as much as I do wants a cigarette that's extra mild. And I like Fatima's different flavor and aroma.
Listed under S, Scanlon. Louise Scanlon, Stork Club cigarette girl. She says,
more and more of my Stork Club customers are smoking king-size Fatimas. They're elegant, distinctive, and really extra mild.
friends, our files show Fatima sales are going up. Up every day.
The reason for Fatima's ever-increasing popularity can be summed up in 2 words. Fatima quality.
Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma.
If you smoke a king-size cigarette, remember this.
Fatima has all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has. In Fatima, the difference is quality.
So insist on the best. Insist on king-size Fatima.
Next time, buy Fatima in the distinctive gold and yellow package. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Thursday, January 22nd, 9:30 a.m. The TV set was returned to reporter Jack Knet's home after having been repaired by a servicing company called Cheney's Video Repairs. We found that the man who had come to Knet's home to make the service call was Robert B. Cheney, the owner of the service outfit. Well, as soon as the set was returned, we called the sound lab and had it picked up and taken downtown. Sergeant Marshall Zeno, who was working with us out of Bunko Detail, called and said that Dick Saunders had finished his investigation and wanted to see us right away. 10:30 a.m., we went down to West 1st Street, the police sound lab. Saunders went over his findings with us.
Here are the photographs before and after. Before we go over these, let me show you what we found out about your repair job.
Okay.
Over here. Here's that receipt Cheney gave you when he returned the set.
Yeah.
Here's what the repair bill states. Replaced vertical blocking transformer, Replaced 5U4G tube, 6AU6 tube, and 12AU7 tube.
And the charge was $32.50.
Plus 98 cents tax, or a total of $33.48.
Well, how does that break down, Dick?
Well, it appears that the 98 cents tax was for $28 worth of material used in the repair.
Mm-hmm.
Did they really put in all that stuff?
You got yourself a prize package in that outfit. All they did was to replace the 5U4G tube.
That's all they did, huh?
Yeah. Here's the capper. The 5U4G is a war surplus tube, but it works okay.
What else did you find?
According to the photographs and coding system, no vertical blocking transformer, 6AU6 tube, or 12AU7 tube were replaced. Let's get back to the photos here. Here, you can take these along for your package.
Thanks, Dick.
You can see in the set here.
Yeah?
Let me show you. You see, this tube is the only part mentioned in the receipt or otherwise that doesn't carry our green paint coating system.
Yeah.
Let me turn the set around here.
All right.
Joe, try the channel selector here.
What, this?
Yeah, that's the tuning knob to bring in the stations. Channel selector, they call it. Turn it.
Okay.
Falls off pretty easy, doesn't it?
It sure does. Here, Dick.
Thanks. They left out the spring clip in here. It should have been put back in because that's what holds the knob secure to the shaft.
I've had that happen on radio sets.
Yeah, sometimes they're a little stubborn to put back in, but a good repairman would never leave it out.
Yeah.
Something else here. Turn the set around and back again.
No, I'll get it, Dick.
Oh, thanks, Ben. Yeah, you see here? See how loose the chassis is in the cabinet now?
Yeah, it sure is.
Wasn't that way when we got it from the K. Halbert dealer, any more than the channel selector was faulty.
It was in perfect shape when we got it.
Look at the size of that chassis. It's pretty heavy.
Yeah, it is.
Originally, there were 4 screws used to hold the chassis in the wood cabinet. Cheney's repair outfit only put 1 back in. 1 screw to hold that heavy chassis.
It's a pretty sloppy job, all right.
You know what they'd probably tell you if you asked them about this?
That it only requires 1 screw.
Yeah, that's it. The bad repairman can always improve on factory standards, usually for his own convenience. Certainly doesn't improve the product.
No, looks like we got what we were after.
Think we got enough, Joe?
I do. Let's see what the city attorney thinks. We collected all the evidence in the case against Cheney's video repairs. We met with Captain McCauley and took it up to the 2nd floor of the city hall. We met with Assistant City Attorney Boyd Taylor and showed him our findings. He issued a warrant for the arrest of Robert W. Cheney, charging him with violation of Section 484 PC, 1 count. 11:30 a.m., Thursday, January 22nd. Ben and I drove out to make the arrest. Jack Canet went along with us.
This is it, Cheney's video repair.
Yeah, come on, Jack.
There's Cheney behind the counter.
Yeah.
Hello there.
Hi.
How's the set working?
All right.
We did a good job on that one. Gave you a better break on the price than I thought we could.
Yeah, police officers, you're under arrest.
Well, you're kidding. What for?
Petty theft. Come on, let's go.
Petty theft? Well, I don't understand. You're the fellows I fixed that set for up on Crescent Drive, aren't you?
That's right. Your bill was a little high, wasn't it?
Oh, now, wait a minute. If that's all that's bothering you, let's talk it over.
Come on, let's go.
Look, I can fix that up with you guys. Just tell me how much you want to pay and we'll work out something.
That seems to be the way you worked our repair deal right from the start, doesn't it? Only you didn't consult us about it till now.
Well, look, you know how it is in this business. If you don't charge some customers a little money, they don't think you did anything to their sets.
You ought to try charging them for just the work you do.
Can't we get together on this thing? Let's just forget the whole deal. You don't owe me anything. Now, here. Here, I'll refund all your money. We'll call it square.
Never mind. Just leave the money in the cash register and get your code.
Can't prove anything anyway.
We think we can. Just step around the counter this way.
Look, mister, you're not a cop, are you?
No, I'm not.
Well, then tell him, isn't that a fair deal? I'll give you back your money.
Afraid it's a little late for that, Cheney.
If all this gets in the papers, I'll be ruined here. Run out of business.
That's the way we got it figured.
How many men you have working here for you?
4. Why?
This, right here. You ever read this?
Well, what is it? Oh, the thing from the RTA.
Here. Read Article 2, would you?
2?
Yeah, that's right.
I will conduct myself and my business in an honest and straightforward manner, meriting and inspiring the confidence of my customers. Yeah, I know about this.
You're a member of the RTA, Radio Technicians Association, aren't you?
Yeah, I am.
Read Article 4, would you?
I propose to charge a just and fair price for all professional services rendered.
Now read this Article 7.
I will engage only in fair and ethical practices recommended and approved by the Radio Technicians Association as being conducive to public confidence. Yeah, I read all this before.
Too bad you didn't remember it.
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On April 15th, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 82, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, this week I'll be seeing you from page 8 of Life magazine, this week's Fatima ad. Right across the top it says, "In Fatima, the difference is quality." Well, in Fatima, the finest domestic and Turkish tobaccos give you extra mildness, a different, better flavor and aroma. Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette. Prove, as I have, what a difference Fatima quality makes. Next time, buy Fatima in the golden yellow package. Best of all, king-size cigarettes. Ladies and gentlemen, in the few remaining moments, we'd like to take this opportunity to thank you once again for your many kind letters of encouragement that come in from week to week. And also, we'd like to answer a few questions about our program which seem common to many of the letters that we receive from you. Many of you have inquired why, at the end of the program, in recounting the punishment of the criminal involved in the particular case, we generally refer to the sentence received as the term prescribed by law. Well, we use this reference for the following reason. In the state of California, the length of a convicted criminal's prison term is not set by the court, but by the state adult authority. Now, most of the time, a criminal is merely found guilty by the court and then sentenced to the state penitentiary. After he serves a year in prison, the convict has a hearing before this state adult authority, at which time his actual sentence is set. So you can see why we can't give you the actual sentence in many cases. Now, other questions common to many of your letters concern some of the authentic technical police terminology which comes up from time to time on Dragnet. With the help of George Fenneman, we'd like to explain some of the more common ones for you, if we may. First, you've heard us use the term or the letters APB.
APB. That's an all-points bulletin. A communication dispatched to all divisions and law enforcement agencies throughout the state.
And then we feel sure that you remember the term Mama Sheet.
A Mama Sheet is the master information form on a criminal in a police department file. It contains his complete description, his habits, relatives, acquaintances, everything about him known to the police.
Well, thank you, George, and thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your very fine letters. From time to time, if we may, we'll take this opportunity to explain a few more of our authentic police terminology. Thank you.
Robert W. Cheney, owner and operator of Cheney's Video Repairs, was tried and convicted on several counts of violating Section 484 PC, petty theft. He was fined $200 and received a sentence as prescribed by law. Petty theft is punishable by imprisonment in the county jail for not more than 6 months.
Ladies and gentlemen, Dragnet wishes to thank the Los Angeles Daily News and its feature writer, Jack Webb, for their valuable assistance in preparing this case for presentation. It is our combined belief and knowledge that not all television repair servicemen are dishonest and unscrupulous in their practices. A great percentage of these technicians are forthright and conduct their business in strict compliance with the code of ethics. It is these men who, when informed of the unfair conditions that exist in their trade, will drive the dishonest and crooked from their profession.
You have just heard Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima, best of all, king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
It's the Silver Jubilee on NBC. For 25 years, NBC has been bringing you the very best in radio entertainment. Listen now to another exciting story on Counter Spy, coming up on NBC.
Fatima, best of all king-size cigarettes, brings you Dragnet.
You're a detective sergeant. You're assigned to homicide detail. An elderly man is found dead in the living room of his home. There's a single bullet hole in his chest. On the surface, it appears the man took his own life, but the evidence points to the opposite. Your job? Investigate.
More and more smokers coast to coast are saying this about king-size Fatima every day.
They're different. Better.
They are different. So pleasing.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality. You see, Fatima contains the finest domestic and Turkish tobaccos superbly blended. And Fatima is extra mild, with a much different, much better flavor and aroma.
Compare Fatima with any other king-size cigarette.
You'll find Fatima gives you all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
Yes, in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Next time, buy Fatima. Best of all, king-size cigarettes.
Dragnet, the documented drama of an actual crime. For the next 30 minutes, in cooperation with the Los Angeles Police Department, you will travel step by step on the side of the law through an actual case transcribed from official police files. From beginning to end, from crime to punishment, Dragnet is the story of your police force in action.
It was Wednesday, January 10th. It was cold in Los Angeles. We were working a day watch out of homicide detail. My partner's Ben Romero. The boss is Thad Brown, chief of detectives. My name's Friday. It was 8:25 a.m. when I got to the police academy, the doctor's office. Morning.
Morning. Can I help you?
I'm checking in for my annual physical.
Oh, okay. All right. Let's see here. Name?
Joe Friday.
Let's see. Friday, just like a day in the week?
Yeah, that's right.
Friday. Can't seem to find it. You sure you were notified?
Yeah, the teletype was posted in the office a couple of days ago. Annual physical exams. My name was right near the top of the list. Friday.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, here you are. Joseph Friday.
That's it, yeah.
Well, all right, Friday. Let's get your name down here.
Okay.
Your age?
34.
Where you work?
Central Homicide.
Serial number?
2288.
2288. Okay, Friday, you want to step this way?
All right.
Step off your shoes, your coat, and shirt.
Okay. Well, they keeping you busy?
Oh, pretty busy, yeah. 4,500 men in the department. Everyone has to have an annual physical. Better get you weighed and send you along inside. Doc's probably ready for you by now.
Okay.
Over here. Oh, never fails. Dr. Vance's office. Who's that? Just a minute. It's for you, Friday, your office.
Oh, thank you. Friday talking.
This is Ben, Joe. You about through over there?
No, not quite. I haven't seen Doc Vance yet. What's the matter?
Dead body called up by Westlake Park. Radio car's out there now.
No one else in homicide to handle it?
Not right now. They're pretty busy. Now, you should coming back to the office. Why don't you meet me out there? It's 932 Old Laurel Lane.
Just a minute. Have that pad, Doc. Thank you. 9320 Laurel. I got it. What's the story?
Old man was found dead in his living room, bullet hole in his chest. Men in the radio car said at first it looked like the old man had killed himself. They're not so sure now.
What do you mean?
They think he had some help.
8:45 a.m. I left the doctor's office at the police academy and drove to the Westlake area where I met Ben in front of the cottage where the dead body had been found. We went inside and checked with one of the men from the radio car who was standing by. The dead man was identified as Martin Latimer, age 68, a retired owner of a couple of neighborhood grocery stores in the city. He was lying sprawled on his side on the floor. There was a bullet hole in his chest just above the heart where the slug had entered the body. There was another, larger wound in the back through the left shoulder blade where the bullet had emerged. Approximately 8 feet across the room from the body was another chair. There was a Winchester rifle wired firmly to the top. its muzzle pointing directly above the spot where the body lay on the floor. A thick white string was found wound firmly around the trigger of the rifle. It ran through a metal ring on the stock of the gun and stretched across the room where it had been tied to the dead man's right index finger. At first glance, it seemed like an obvious suicide arrangement. Officer Harkness, one of the men in the radio car who had answered the call, took exception.
I know, Sergeant. Maybe I'm all wet. Just doesn't gel right for me.
Who discovered the body, Harkness?
Next-door neighbor, Mrs. Donworth. My partner's with her now. Did you fellas call the crime lab?
Yeah, they're on their way out. Was the old man the only one who lived in the house here?
Yeah, that's what the neighbor told us. Sure like to see what the crime lab crew's going to think of it.
Well, what's the big question, Harkness?
Well, I know it's none of my business, Sergeant. You fellas are the detectives. I just couldn't help but notice, though.
What's that?
Well, here. Now, over here, this rifle wired to the back of the chair.
Yeah.
Now, take a sight along the barrel of the rifle. See what you think.
Right through the sight, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Pointed right above the arms you're over there, isn't it? It's in a straight line with the body. Well, that much fits. The old man pulled the string tied to his index finger, and it set off the trigger. Took the slug through the chest, remember?
Yeah, that's what I figured. Now, here, take a look at the wall directly behind the old man.
Yeah?
The slug went clean through the body, we know that. Through the chest above the heart, then out through the shoulder blade.
I see what you mean.
Oh, here, now, take a look at this wall here. Got a mark on it.
Yeah. One thing, sure, if the old man was shot in that position, the slug had to come this way.
Well?
Pass through his body right about this height here.
Uh-huh.
We ought to find the bullet hole in this wall. Right around here.
It ought to be. Not a trace of the slug there. Not much chance it could have been deflected, do you think?
Well, that's what I thought. It's a 30-30 Winchester, enough power to go through a couple of plaster walls.
Well, we know the slug went through the body. It's got to be somewhere in one of these four walls.
Take a look over here and see what you think.
All right.
Down here near the corner of the wall.
Where?
Well, right here.
Yeah, looks like it. Ben?
Something's out of kilter. The rifle never could have thrown the slug this far down on the wall. Not the way it's wired to the chair there.
And besides that, it's way out of line. At least 4 feet the way I figured here.
Well, I know it's none of my business, Sergeant. I couldn't help but notice it, though. You want me to stand by outside?
Yeah, okay, if you will. Would you mind checking with your partner? See if we can have that neighbor lady brought over for questioning, will you?
Right, I'll check with him now.
Thank you. Sure.
I'm going to take another look at that rifle.
Well, it sure doesn't add up too well, does it? Even if the old man jerked the gun when he pulled the trigger with that string arrangement, the slug couldn't have passed through his chest, out his back, and then hit the wall where it did.
Well, stand just behind the body, will you, Joe? See if it's possible to line it up.
All right, what about here? Look about it to you?
Yeah. That's good. Let me see. No, not a chance, Joe. It's way out of line. That's the gun that killed him. The old man didn't pull the trigger. Not from there, anyway.
Well, there's one other chance.
Yeah?
Somebody pulled it for him. Lieutenant Lee Jones arrived with his crime lab crew and went to work. We put in a call to the coroner's office, and then the dead man's neighbor, Mrs. Elsie Donworth, was brought over for questioning. She was a chubby, matronly lady, about 45. She told us she'd been a neighbor to the aging Martin Latimer for more than 10 years.
I take it you knew Mr. Latimer pretty well, ma'am.
Yeah, I suppose. Didn't have any relatives, poor man. All alone. He was in the grocery business for years. He made some nice money, I guess. Retired about 8 years ago, sold both his stores. Had an income from a mortgage on one of them. $150 a month. Yeah, he was very comfortable. Wasn't a penny pincher at all, but he was thrifty. It's just the same way with my husband, Claude. He used to say, take care of the dimes and the dollars will take care of themselves.
Well, Mrs. Donworth, can you think of any reason why Latimer would want to take his own life?
Oh, I suppose. The poor old man is getting along in years. For a long time there, he was afraid he was going to die with cancer.
Is that so? Did Mr. Latimer have cancer, do you know?
Oh, no. He kept thinking he was going to die with it. Could you come next door to my place while I get some of my laundry out? We could talk there. It's just across the yard.
All right, ma'am. That'll be fine. If you want to tell Lee Jones we'll be next door, Ben, guess you better let Harkness know, too.
Yeah, right. I'll tell him.
Thank you.
About that cancer business, officer, Mr. Latimer was always talking about it.
Yes, ma'am.
He finally went to a doctor about it. That was last week only. He came back and he told me the doctor said for him not to be so silly about it. He was a well man in good health.
When was the last time that you saw Latimer, ma'am?
Day before yesterday.
Oh, we laughed and joked over the back fence. Poor old man. He had such a nice smile. Reminded me a good deal of Claude. That was my husband.
Well, I'd like to have your honest opinion, Miss Donworth. Do you think Mr. Latimer killed himself?
Well, I suppose that rifle in there, that terrible contraption.
Joe, I wonder if I could talk to you a minute.
Yeah, okay. Would you like to go on ahead over next door, ma'am? We'll be right with you.
All right, officer.
Thank you very much. We'll be right there, ma'am. Yeah.
Crime lab crew's having a field day. They say if the old man shot himself with that rig, it ought to make Ripley's call him.
They find anything definite?
Dusted the rifle for fingerprints. Didn't find a warrant. How about that?
Yeah. It makes less sense than that slug buried in the corner of the wall, doesn't it?
Sure does. Checked the desk in the living room, found some correspondence Latimer was having with some woman through a Lonely Hearts Club.
Yeah? Did you find any reason why he'd want to die?
Pretty good reason why he'd want to live.
Huh?
Found a photograph. Beautiful girl. Looked to be about 24 or 5.
What about it?
She was going to marry him.
The crime lab crew continued their routine investigation of Martin Latimer's cottage. They removed a .30-30 slug from the corner of one wall. Ben and I went next door to question the neighbor, Mrs. Donworth. There didn't seem to be any common ground at all between the evidence in the house and the information that she had to offer. As we continued questioning her, Mrs. Donworth remembered that a month before, Latimer had told her that something might happen to him and he wanted to make out a will. He asked if she would witness the will. A few days later, Latimer's lawyer came to the house and Mrs. Donworth witnessed the signing. At that time, she said Latimer made the remark, "I don't feel like going on much longer anyway. If death means arrest, I think I deserve one." Mrs. Donworth kept busy with the laundry while we interviewed her.
Could you let me get by to the manual, officer? I have to get some of this ironing done.
Yes, ma'am, I'm sorry.
I'm afraid there's one thing I don't remember you telling us, ma'am. Did you hear anything out of the ordinary going on next door, or this morning or last night?
No, nothing I noticed anyway. Officer, did you see that knob on the washer, the one on the left?
Oh, you mean this over here?
Yeah, just lift it up and turn it around to off, please. It says off right there in the dial.
Yes, ma'am, I see. There you are.
Yeah, thanks. No, there was nothing I heard from next door to remark about. Of course, it's so noisy around here that time of morning you can't even hear yourself think anyway.
How's that, ma'am?
Trucks passing by up and down. Every morning. They're not small trucks either. They start in at 6 a.m. They rattle past for 2-3 hours, please.
First good explanation we've had on this thing.
Could you give us the names of some of the other people on the street who knew Mr. Latimer pretty well, Mrs. Donworth?
Yeah, I suppose. I don't think any of them knew the poor old man as well as I did. Most of them are younger folks, parties and things. When you get up around 65 or past it, like Mr. Latimer, parties don't mean so much anymore.
Yes, ma'am, I understand.
Yeah. Just a nice, quiet home with a good heating system. Good books on the shelf. Good man around the house. That all you can ask for?
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you very much. We'll leave our card here in case you want to contact us for any reason.
All right, officer.
Well, there's one more thing, Mrs. Donworth. We understand Latimer was corresponding with several women through a Lonely Hearts Club. Did he ever mention that to you?
No, he never did. I found out from the mailman. He's a regular gossip.
And Latimer never mentioned any of the women that he corresponded with, is that right?
I pretended I didn't even know about it. He never brought it up. Don't understand why he'd want to meet a lady that way. All most of them are looking for is a man with money so they can quit work and lay around the house.
Well, thanks again, Mrs. Donworth. It's been very helpful.
Yeah. Poor old man. I wonder what made him write letters after silly women. Little good they'd have done him. He wrote letters all over the country.
Mm-hmm.
Getting tired of working myself. Could have saved the postage, too.
Beg your pardon?
I was right next door. Would have married him in a minute.
We left Mrs. Donworth's house a few minutes past noon, and we went back next door to Latimer's cottage. The crime lab crew had finished their investigation, and the deputy coroner arrived. He took the body downtown for autopsy. We talked over the crime lab findings with Lieutenant Lee Jones, and he felt the same way that Ben and I did. The theory that Latimer had shot himself to death was possible in many respects, but it was far from plausible. We checked through Latimer's correspondence with the women that he'd contacted by mail through the Lonely Hearts Club. Especially the young girl he obviously intended to marry, judging from his letters to her. Her picture showed her to be a brunette, dark eyes, young, and very attractive. The inscription at the bottom read, "With love, Catherine." There was no return address on either the photo or the letter. Ben called to check with the Lonely Hearts Club.
Yes, ma'am. No, that's all right. We'll probably be dropping down to talk to you. Yes, boy.
What'd they say?
Might be it, Joe. Club secretary says they've been having trouble with somebody who signs a picture just like this one. With love, Catherine. I described the picture, and the secretary says it's the same girl.
What's the angle?
The girl doesn't belong to the club, but somehow she got a list of the members and their addresses. She writes to them, usually old men, gets them set for marriage, and they send for her. Her letters come from the east, from different cities. She writes and asks for train fare out here. The men send her the money for clothes and train fare, and that's the last of it. She's gone.
Oh, it adds up, all right. There's one letter here. This one. I hate to ask you, dear, but if you could send me the traveling money and just a little extra for some clothes, I will take the first train and be with you in a week to become your wife, awaiting that precious moment and so on.
Kind of poured it on thick. What's the date on this?
Let's see, December 30th. It's 12 days ago.
What do you think?
That's possible. She could have showed up, tried to grab all the old man's money she could find. Maybe he caught her at it. She killed him, rigged up this phony setup to make it look like Latimer shot himself.
And to hold more water if we could find out she really came here. Maybe we better start ringing a few doorbells. The other neighbors might come up with something. What do you say?
Let me see that girl's picture again, will you?
Yeah, here you go. No photographer's name.
Now look in the back here, Ben.
Here?
No, down here in the corner. Right in the corner of the picture mounting.
Oh, yeah. XXX6Y3. Must be some kind of manufacturer's marking. Photography supply. Guess it stands for the type of paper, huh? You know anything about the photo business?
No, I don't.
Neither do I.
Let's find somebody who does, huh? Before we drove back to the office, Ben and I covered the rest of the neighborhood and talked to everybody who knew the dead man, Martin Latimer, even remotely. They told us nothing that we didn't already know. There'd been no strangers seen visiting the old man. No one had noticed anything out of the ordinary in Latimer's daily routine. 3 o'clock that afternoon, we checked with the police photo lab. They told us that the symbols stamped on the cardboard frame of the photograph signed Catherine were symbols used by a photo supply company up in San Francisco. We went back to the office and got in touch with the San Francisco firm. We were told that the symbols indicated the style and the size of photographic mounting, and further, that this particular type of mounting was distributed only throughout 7 western states. They gave us a list of 18 photo studios in Los Angeles who kept that particular mount in stock. It was a long chance, but we started checking them out. Meantime, we'd run the girl through R&I and gotten out an APB, seeking information on her. 3 days later, Ben and I had checked out 10 of the 18 photo studios on our list. The 11th was the M&Y Family Portraits on Melrose.
Yes, sir. Help you? Police officers, would you mind taking a look at this photograph here, please? Let's see. Would you like an enlargement? Got a special price on enlargements this week?
No, sir. We'd just like to know if you can identify this girl, that's all.
Oh.
Well, do you recognize her at all, sir?
I know her. Sure you wouldn't like an enlargement?
You're in a cruiser car of a Metropolitan Police Department. You receive a routine radio call.
All units, attention all units. Pick up and hold for investigation the following vehicle. 1948 Ford, 2-door sedan, black white sidewall tires.
There are many cars that fit this description. You listen for more facts.
This car will have extensive damage to right front end. License number 9 Robert 9 707. In the 7 column, 9 Robert 9 707. KMA 367.
Now you can pin it down to one. It's the same with cigarettes. There are many king-size brands to choose from. But when you know all the facts, you'll make your choice Fatima.
Here are those facts. Fatimas are the same in length and circumference as any other king-size cigarette. 85 millimeters long, 1 1/64 inches around.
And Fatima filters the smoke exactly the same long distance.
But in Fatima, the difference is quality.
Fatima gives you extra mildness, a much different, much better flavor and aroma. Remember, Fatima gives long cigarette smokers all the advantages of extra length, plus Fatima quality, which no other king-size cigarette has.
Next time, insist on the best. Buy Fatima, best of all king-size cigarettes.
January 13th, 1:35 p.m. We showed the photograph of the girl to the proprietor of the photo studio on Melrose Avenue, and he identified her as one of his customers. He told us her name was Doris Chambers. She was 22 years old and a postgraduate student in chemistry at the university. She came from a fairly well-to-do family, and her father was the president of a local neighborhood bank. She didn't even come close to the type of girl that we were looking for. We got the address from the photographer, drove out to the home, and interviewed the Chambers girl. She gave a younger appearance than she did in her picture. She couldn't recognize the handwriting on the photo, nor did she understand the inscription with Love, Catherine. After questioning her, it became apparent that she knew nothing at all about 68-year-old Martin Latimer.
I wonder if you'd mind taking another look at the handwriting on the picture, miss. Familiar at all?
No, I couldn't be sure either way. Seems like I've seen it, though.
Well, when did you say you had this picture made, miss?
About a year ago at graduation. My mother had extra copies made up. She liked it. I didn't care for it much.
Could you tell us how many people have prints of this picture?
Mama had 24 copies made up. She took 12, and I took 12.
Uh-huh.
She sent them to relatives, friends of ours. Kept a few.
What'd you do with yours?
Sent them to friends, girls at school, a few of my boyfriends.
Can you remember if you autographed any of them?
Yeah, some of them. The ones from my girlfriend. Others I gave out plain.
Well, can you try and think who you gave those to, miss, the unsigned pictures?
One went to Carl, I know that. And Ray, and Fred, and Don, and Warren. I think that's it.
Wonder if we could have their full names and addresses, please.
Yes, all right. I don't know what I'm saving all this junk for. Old letters. Could I see that picture, please?
Yeah, here you are.
What is the same writing? I thought I'd seen it before.
Huh?
This old letter from Warren. See the writing? Doesn't it look the same to you?
Looks close, Joe.
Yeah, we'll have Don Meyer on handwriting check it over. Who is this Warren, Miss Chambers?
Warren White. Here's his address right here.
Yeah, I'll copy it, Joe.
Fine.
Warren and I went to college together. We were engaged to be married for a while, and then I broke it off.
I see.
Warren's a serious boy. He was very thorough. Perfectionist. You know, Sergeant? Never does things halfway.
That's so?
Never known Warren to do anything in his life halfway, not once.
Well, he's going to have a perfect record if that handwriting matches.
What can they do to him?
I don't know, but they won't do it halfway. 2:55 p.m. We left the home of Doris Chambers and drove down Beverly Boulevard to 743 North Clairwood Avenue, an apartment house where the suspect was supposed to be living. We talked to the manager, and he told us that Warren White had moved without giving notice 3 days before, on January 10th, the same day 68-year-old Martin Latimer was found dead in his home. We got on the phone, talked to Doris Chambers again, and she gave us a lead on Warren White's married sister. 7:30 p.m., we met with the sister of the murder suspect, and she told us that her brother Warren had phoned that morning and asked for an emergency loan of $200, which she didn't have to give him. The sister gave us White's new address, and we checked it out. It was one of those run-down, futuristic-style apartment houses built in the mid-'30s. It was on a narrow road high above Sunset Boulevard overlooking most of Hollywood. White wasn't in, and the manager said he wasn't expected back till early the next morning. We had the manager let us in White's apartment. We waited. Midnight. 1 a.m. No sign of the suspect.
No denying it. It's sure a beautiful view from here.
It's the best in town. Be nice for single fellows up here, wouldn't it? Wouldn't work with the family, though.
How about you, Joe? Why don't you get your mother looking around up here? It'd be a beautiful place for the two of you.
No, I don't think Ma'd ever leave the house. She's been there for 40 years. I guess she'll stay there till she dies. Would be nice up here, though, wouldn't it? What a view, huh?
Mm-hmm. Why don't you try talking her into it? You got nothing to lose.
Yeah, I might do that. Why don't you slide up one of the windows? It's getting a little stuffy in here.
Yeah. Oh, smell that air, huh? That's great.
Yeah. What time you got?
1:45. Oh, it's a long night.
We waited. 3 a.m., 4 a.m., 4:30. It was cold, and still no sign of the suspect, Warren White. 5 a.m., 5:30, 6 a.m. The sky was getting light over in the east. 6:30, 7 a.m., 7:30. We kept waiting. No sign of the suspect. We called the office and arranged for a relief. 8 a.m., We could hear groups of youngsters passing by outside, trooping into the main yard of a grammar school just below the apartment house. We kept waiting. At 8:15 a.m., we heard a car pull up in front of the apartment house. Footsteps came down the driveway, up the path, stopped outside the door. We heard a key turn in the lock.
What is this? What do you want?
You Warren White?
Yes.
Police officers got some questions we'd like to ask you.
It's all right, officers. Why don't you sit down? I'm not going to give you any trouble.
Huh?
I killed him. Maybe I'll never know why, but I killed him.
You want to tell us about it?
You must have had a reason for it, rigging it for a suicide. Do you have anything against him?
I hardly even knew him. He used that picture of Doris to fool. Made some good money doing it. I needed it.
You willing to give us a statement about the whole thing?
I haven't anything to hide, officer. The minute I killed him, I knew it was all over. Right there in that 1 minute. I knew you'd come and find me somehow. I didn't know when, but you'd come and find me.
Well, okay, Ben. We better head downtown.
Yeah. What? It's a great sound, isn't it?
What's that?
The schoolyard.
Yeah.
The kids. Got a great sound to it. Good one.
You want to get your hat?
All right. How can anybody figure? You start in the schoolyard like those kids down there, running around, yelling. I started the same.
Better get going.
I wonder what it is that happens. An 8-year-old redhead kid. There must be one down there now. The other kids will grow up, get jobs, work, and die. It'll be all right.
Yeah.
The one kid will end up in an alley with a gun in his hand. How can anybody figure?
I don't know.
A bunch of kids playing in the schoolyard. Someday one of them's a killer.
Yeah, let's go.
You tell me. What's the answer?
The story you have just heard was true. Only the names were changed to protect the innocent.
On April 2nd, trial was held in Superior Court, Department 88, City and County of Los Angeles, State of California. In a moment, the results of that trial.
And now, here is our star, Jack Webb.
Thank you. Friends, it's come to my attention that some people have a misunderstanding about the cost of Fatimas. Well, I'd sure like to straighten that out for you right now. The cost of Fatima is the same as the cigarettes you're now smoking. Yes, that's right. Fatimas cost no more. But in Fatima, the difference is quality. Buy Fatima in the golden yellow package.
Warren Thomas White was tried and convicted of murder in the first degree. He received a sentence of life imprisonment. He is still serving his term in the state penitentiary, Folsom, California.
Ladies and gentlemen, to build our strength against aggression, we've got to equip our armed forces with weapons of war and at the same time produce plenty of civilian goods so that we can keep prices down. Remember, the better we produce, the stronger we grow.
Dragnet, a series of authentic cases from official files. Technical advice comes from the Office of Chief of Police W.H. Parker, Los Angeles Police Department.
Fatima, best of all king-size cigarettes, has brought you Dragnet, transcribed from Los Angeles.
Stay tuned for Counter Spy, next over NBC.